Hello. When my parents were in their 20s, they took out a loan for a house with the bank. In my 20s, I took out a loan for a pizza with Afterpay. I'm your host, not Jason Miles. It's a biblical name. I'm here for another episode of This is Revolution podcast. Welcome back. Peace to the mods, peace to the chat. This week on TIR, we covered Haitian architecture, global chaos, anti-intellectualism, and more. If you missed any of those episodes, check them out after this show. We're also very close to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube, so if you're watching and not subscribed, hit the button. It's free. And if you watch and don't subscribe, technically, that's stealing. And if you're already subscribed, please unsubscribe to every channel that's not This is Revolution to show us how special we are to you. Also, you can join us for champagne rooms, movie nights, and more by becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month or becoming a member on YouTube. All right, let's get to what you came here for. What is the peanut butter economy? Think back to the U.S. in early 2021. MAGA's most ardent storms the Capitol building, and a Nepo baby named Chet Hanks preemptively declares the coming of something called White Boy Summer. Meanwhile, employees at companies like Amazon and Apple were pushing back on return to work orders and winning, and essential workers sought to turn their recognition into better pay. From 2021 to 2022, there was a historic trend of voluntary job quitting in the U.S., driven by burnout, remote work demands, and a search for higher pay called the Great Resignation. And for a few years, workers had leverage. But by early 2025, those historic quit rates slowed as employees increasingly opted for job security. This trend was called the Great Stay. And what followed was raises shrinking back to 3.5% or less, companies slowing hiring, and layoffs in industries like tech and media, and employers regaining leverage. We also got a slew of cutesy names for a variety of job trends that were devastating to workers. Then came the remixes. And as the great Harlem labor economist Cameron once said, the remixes is crazy. That's where we get, quote unquote, peanut butter raises. CNBC reports the term refers to across the board raises that were, quote, very even and spread thinly like peanut butter would be on a sandwich. PayScale says nearly half of organizations already use peanut butter raises, plan to, or are considering it. Remember when everyone said workers had the power? Well, now we have peanut butter raises. Your labor, undervalued, precarious, degraded. This is another economy beyond that which is known to most boomers. It is an economy as vast as space, and so far feels as timeless as infinity. It is a middle ground between avocado toast and donated plasma, between locking in and burning out, and it lies between the pit of workers' fears and the summit of their knowledge. This is an expression of wage stagnation. It is a zone which we call the peanut butter economy. Let's bring in the people helping us survive it. Last time I had an all-lady person panel. This time, it's me and my bros. First up, he's been a writer for Black Agenda Report, among other outlets, the ultimate co-host on This is Revolution, and the sapiosexuals, them sugar. He is Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, M. Toussaint.
Welcome. Next up, he is a long-suffering educator, a brainy podcaster with a heart of gold, and the best-looking of all his brothers. He is C. Derick Varn.
Hi. You're one of the few people who know that A, I have a bunch of brothers, and B, what they look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess I should preemptively plug. I'm also a book writer again, so there's that.
Oh, nice. We like it. We like it. And lastly, but not leastly, he is the co host of This is Revolution's Philosophy for the People on Sunday. You should check it out. And our behind the scenes Swiss Army knife. He is the Quintern, aka the Office of Quinternal Affairs, aka Quinn.
What's up, y'all?
Welcome. Hello, fellas. How you doing today?
Hey. So, as Quintern and Philosophy for the People co-host, does that make you the ghost of Ben?
Shit, maybe just the second coming.
Okay.
Oh. Wow.
Also, like, we have to change the name. It's probably not going to stay Philosophy for the People because that's Ben's Substack.
True.
We'll change it eventually. We just haven't gotten around to it.
I noticed that today when I was firming up your intro. So, welcome, fellas. I specifically asked all of you smart guys not to do any research for this episode and instead to focus on your physical appearances. So, thank you for obliging. Have any of you heard of peanut butter raises?
I thought you were saying peanut butter raisins for half of the intro.
No,
I'm
this
so
was a new
sorry.
one to me.
Not particularly. No, I mean, I think I'm experiencing it right now since when as a rep, I asked my union, or excuse me, my association. They're too cowardly to call themselves a union. President, how negotiations was going, and they told us they couldn't even tell us, and I was like, that sounds great.
Oh,
So,
that's alarming. So, is a peanut butter raise what equality looks like, or just what management thinks the left will settle for?
Well, I would assume that peanut butter raisins aren't just affecting the left. That's probably affecting labor overall. And if that's the case, it's not a crisis of the left. It's a crisis of capitalism. But we've been seeing downward salaries for 35 to 50 years in America. I mean, in terms of the actual rate of increase of salaries versus cost of living expenses, it hasn't gone upward since probably the 70s.
There's a
So what
brief
is-
spike in 2021, but yeah, all that was eaten away by inflation.
What does the left have to say about it? Varn, are you happy to get a peanut butter raise? Does it feel like equality to you? Do you think it's fair?
I mean, on one hand, like when we talk about the left outside of New York, where does it matter? I mean, to be completely frank with you, like even where there's electeds represented by the DSA, what policy victories are they having outside of New York City? And as far as unions go, we have been told by certain magazines that that are left wing, I suppose, that we were in a swelling of union growth for years. Now, I do think there's a workers movement out there, but the union growth was almost all in small shops and in non-franchise small shop retail and in new unions, none of which is not important. But the problem is it's hard for those unions to get decent contracts depending on the way they're structured under the NCLRA or the National Labor Relations Act, if it even applies to them, and it doesn't always. So the big unions, however, have stagnated. And that's you've seen a lot of rank and file campaigns, you've seen a lot of noise, but has their bargaining position increased? Not really. Their union density hasn't increased either. And despite all the noise and calls for a labor president or whatever the fuck you're hearing out of the left, I find it like almost insulting to pretend that there's a good answer to it, because a lot of what we've seen also as far as strategies on the left is to go to more local victories, and that's important to build up a cadre of power. I don't want to say it isn't. The problem that you have with that, though, as your primary strategy, is that you're going to hit budget walls pretty quickly, and
We're seeing that in New York.
Yeah, you already have in New York, but even like New York has resources. I mean, let's say Mondani's pet-a-terre tax takes some more revenue than it's predicted to, and you get expansions under Hochul of the state budget. It's going to be interesting to see if that's enough to even maintain the current levels of services, much less expand them. And when you get outside of New York, where you don't have hordes of accumulated wealth in a central area like that because of the value of property, those same strategies aren't going to work as well unless they're done at a national level. And there's some other things that are going to weaken that might seem good at first. One is you're likely to see wealth being so extrinsically tied to New York start to shed as deregulation actually weakens the monopoly of Wall Street on stock trading, which we're actually beginning to see under Trump, which means that the geographic advantage that New York has by being associated with the Wall Street monopoly on trades, bonds, etc., and all the attendant cash flow that goes through it, will likely look a little bit like what's happened with London under Brexit. And it's going to make a lot of that much harder to do. So what does the left have to say about it? I mean, we'll complain about it. Like we complain about everything. But and I'm hoping we'll see actual union mobilizations, etc. The problem that you have, though, is the fields that everybody works in are not as given to easy unionization as traditional heavy industry is, or even the public sector. And if AI breaks the white collar workers back, and you've already had the blue collar workers back broken by all kinds of things, what's left? And I don't want to sound like doom and gloom because that isn't what I hear, but I don't see a whole lot of promises that are valorizable to fix this. I mean, the other thing we're learning is that if they don't get you on suppressed wages, they're going to get you on inflation and outsourcing costs back to you. And this is just a return to 70s tactics after, a shift in the management of capital from Fordism to neoliberalism ended. We're now seeing another shift, which is like, I don't know, neoliberalism in one country, I guess. Except that's not really true. That's just what it kind of looks like. It more looks like political patronage as a dominating definer of who has access to markets. And that's going to be hard to fight unless you have a lot more push in the Democratic Party than any organized left seems to have.
Grim. Quinn?
I mean, like, yeah, that's it's about how it feels. I try to be a little bit more optimistic, but there's a reason I chose to go to grad school instead of like hopping around a bunch of random corporate jobs, because everything, like the bottom's falling out of everything. And I'll take procrastination over actually facing the problem, because how the fuck are you supposed to like face a hyper object like the economy and keep your sanity?
Facts. Was the Great Resignation a real shift in worker power, or just a brief moment where employers had to pretend labor had the leverage?
I think the Great Resignation had more to do with COVID and
Mm-hmm.
the proximity of labor to the fact that people working from home and people not being able to deal with the strictures of COVID gave a lot of flexibility and power to labor that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think that was a temporary fix, and it's not something that's permanent at all. Particularly, we're seeing now with the influx of AI and the prediction that AI is going to be gutting a lot of jobs, even white collar jobs. I don't see how we can say labor is going to have that much power in that kind of coming technological economy.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like for a moment, like people were demanding to work remotely. They wanted more work-life balance, that sort of thing, and they were demanding it, and they were getting it. They were getting concessions, but
Well,
it seems like that's been slowly being rolled back.
also, what were those concessions really worth? Like, what did capital really have to give up to let
Hmm.
people work from home or like take a couple, extra days off if you still have to meet all your deliverables?
The productivity gains varied by, and losses. There are a lot of losses too, varied by field. So, but it's hard to know what capital had to get up except one, a sector of capital dependent on commercial rents really didn't want to keep on losing.
Hmm.
Two, management had to justify its job. Now, I think we're going to see a middle management gutting. Actually, we're already beginning to see it. But that's more coming from AI. I do want to pick up on the conditions of COVID though, and the conditions of the labor market, because I don't think the Great Resignation, if we want to call it that, it's kind of overstated, was totally fake in the increase of particularly of lower end labor power. But I want to talk about why that was easily played off by the right, and also the timing of a few things you saw thereafter, and what we're seeing now. One, the productivity gains from AI are not nothing, but they are very limited to certain sectors. The current growth of AI and why the Mag 7 holds the entire stock market up. By the way, we have seen less than 1% growth in all other areas of the private sector economy. But AI has been holding it up for two reasons. One, there's a ton of money that came into the U.S. after a single trade from that one-time exemption Trump did to get all the Cayman Island money back into the U.S. Those companies sat on that for a few years, but they were investing it in a way to discipline their own workforce. Two, we should be in a stronger labor bargaining era than we are, with massive amounts of boomers finally leaving the workforce by, I don't know, death. If not retirement. And you should also be seeing lots of wealth transfers downward, but you're not, because the social services we've used to float the inflated cost of healthcare, which has basically been, along with the military during the late 20th century, the two Keynesian projects we allowed. However, and the way we did it with healthcare was off of massive cost sunk through administrative loss with insurance and everything else, and empowering those insurance companies. That's being clawed back by the big beautiful bill. So you're going to see a lot of boomer wealth just evaporate instead of being passed down. It's being claimed. It's not even going to the hospitals now. It's going to debt collectors and into the banks. What does that have to do with wages? Well, what that means is you have more debt, you have more need to work, you have less likelihood of a generational offset of inherited wealth. You also have AI slamming up the job market. What we're seeing is profits are low, that a lot of were low anyway, and a lot of companies don't seem to care if their actual commodity makes any fucking money. They're trying to do it in other new weird ways, and one of the ways to do that is to justify stock buybacks by massive layoffs. Do they need some of those workers? Yes. Is it costly? Yes. But if you're inflating your stock price, it doesn't really fucking matter. You're actually committing to your fiduciary responsibility, which is not to your company, it's to your stockholders. So even if the AI gains aren't real, and so far they are only limitedly real, there are some areas that are given to slop that they really do help because you just need a lot of throughput. And there are ways in which, yes, they do make certain kinds of white collar workers more efficient, but you do have to check them so much and you have to get efficient at it. The bigger issue is that this is a good excuse to generally downsize your workforce when you know you're not going to make money anyway. And what we've also done is claw back most of the social safety net that was enabled during COVID. And actually, a lot of the social safety net going all the way back to the Great Society period. So that the state can start paying down its debts. Well, it says it's doing that, except that the actual spending has actually gone gangbusters just on weird shit, like employing the National Guard to states for no damn reason. Wars that no one even apparently planned for. The inability to renegotiate down production costs for our military equipment, even at the cost of the actual war, which tells you they don't even really care other than about the results of these wars, except that it's shut down oil trade. The oil trade market's actually good for one sector of the U.S. economy, which is our oil sector, but it's not going to be good forever, and they know it. And you're about to have massive food shortages, frankly, if we don't get on getting other sources of nitrogen into the food system, since I think 70% of big farms do not have enough fertilizer to completely fertilize all their fields. I'm not here to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. I actually think this creates a lot of leverage for I about said populist pushback. I guess it's what it is. People know my opinions about populism, but maybe that's better than what we're dealing with right now. The issue is, though, is if you're going to get raises and labor concessions or whatever, you're going to have unions that are not afraid of sanctions under the NCLB are coming into direct conflict with the legality of things under their state, because you also have to remember that since most unions are public sector, more unions are not covered by the NCLB than are. So it's just something that people need to really start talking about. Now that I'm in the DSA, I can speak to this a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about abandoning the labor strategy.
You're hearing that from the DSA?
Yeah, I am. That they want to do the labor strategy after the political strategy, not before. And I say they. It's really divisive within the organization. It's just now a talk that is being negotiated, and I can tell you personally that it is hard to keep interest up in a labor committee here because there's so few ties to the industrial unions outside of New York. They just don't have the same kind of ties in that they do in New York City. And that's leading people to a lot of frustration. Part of that's just because in the other states, the unions are structured differently and don't have the same kind of inroads into government contracts, et cetera, that they do in New York State. I think this is going to be an interesting time because you can only promise a former union renewal. I'm not going to say labor renewal because I do think the workers' agitation movement is real, but a formal union renewal for so long. And I'm going to give you a stat that's super worrying. 1 in 3 men, as of right now, are not even pursuing work according to the federal fucking government. So, I don't know what it is because this crisis is gendered. Female workers are getting squeezed in healthcare, but at least there's jobs in healthcare. If you look at heavy industry that everyone was promised 2 years ago that was starting to be rebuilt, not only has it not been rebuilt, it's actually been damaged pretty significantly by disruption of supply chains. And so that's been leading to a decline in production overall. And companies don't seem to care because they just raise prices to make up the difference. And somehow people are absorbing it, but I don't know how long they possibly can when wages are stagnated, prices are rising, and even taxes are rising. If you look at the effects of tariffs and the cost of tariffs versus tax cuts, most people paid more taxes, despite the tax cuts of the Trump presidency due to the cost of the tariffs. And if those rebates ever go out, that those courts are ordering, it won't be going to the consumer. It will be going to the companies that paid the tariff, so they'll get to keep that, and they don't necessarily bring the prices down. So what should people? If people ask me what we should do, we could talk about that. But yeah, I mean, like peanut butter raises are what you're likely to get. The reason why you're not, we kind of are seeing more unemployment than the stats capture. If 1 in 3 men are not working and yet your unemployment's only at like 5%, 6%, somewhere in there, it's gone up, but not a ton. What does that tell you? It tells you that the stats aren't capturing a lot of people who don't work because they don't qualify for the unemployment stats because they're not actively looking for a job. And the other thing it tells you is there's a massive discrepancy between what you're getting as stats in the economy, which is going to get worse because the FDIC and everything else is also changing reporting rules. It'll take us 6 months to know if people have reported a loss as opposed to a quarter. And we have seen all kinds of oversight into those numbers being even accurate being eroded. So workers don't even know what they're up against as far as the economy goes.
Pascal, is the idea of a peanut butter raise, flat raises across the board, something that a leftist would want? Are we arguing that everyone should be paid the same, or that workers should have enough power to stop being underpaid in the first place, or to have the power to refuse bad jobs? What does the left think about this? Because some
First of
people
all,
would think that's what a leftist would want, everyone to be paid the same.
I'm not one of these people who argues that we even have a left that's worthy of making these kind of arguments. I've made the statement for years that we don't have a left, we have leftists. And the leftists that we have are not particularly of the caliber where they're prepared to fight for labor because, as I've stated also, the class makeup of the contemporary left are downwardly mobile, college-educated, formerly petit bourgeois, adjacent individuals. And they do not know how to deal with labor or the issues of labor or the working class, if you will. We do not have a working class oriented left in the United States. We haven't had one for quite a long time. And as to whether or not they would want a peanut butter raise, why would you want a flat raise if you can't guarantee that it's pegged to inflation? That's just, a flat raise doesn't mean anything if it doesn't deal with the cost of living increase that's coming along with it. It doesn't address anything. It's just a guarantee that you might get nothing.
What do you think high performers should do? If you're really good at your job and they're offering peanut butter wages.
So
I'm not saying you take it. What I'm saying is that don't be happy with it.
Yeah, I'd like to butt in here a little bit. I don't know if you guys know a lot of people that work in the trades, but like a lot of, at least from what I'm hearing, there's a ton of people that are getting like actual wage structures cut, and they're getting put on like performance plans where they're working on commission, and if they hit like certain quotas, they get bonuses. Like it's the traditional wage structure for like blue collar work is being changed in real time, and I don't see a lot of people on the left talking about it.
No, yes, private equity is driving that. Private equity
that makes
buying
sense.
up firms and applying the same sales goal targets that they applied in like corporate sales, which is also hollowing out the wage structure of a lot of the trades. It doesn't hit contractors quite as much, but even they have a lot of pressures because they have to deal with how they negotiate with various actors, mostly various states, if we're honest, because who's doing a lot of the building right now? It's governments, and depending on your state, you may or may not be subject to bidding things that drive down bidding costs to absurd degrees. We do that here, and ironically, the unions are stronger in specific fields that were formerly government but have been liberalized because part of the settlements of that maintain these union structures that have not been tainted actually with actual government work. There's been a massive push on government work here too, because more and more people are just employed by the fucking government, ironically. And the governments are having massive budget shortfalls. I mean, this is across the board, and they're at odds on how to do it. You pass something like a property tax, you think you're just hitting the rich, but that's going to hit 25. They tried to pass a 20% property tax raise, and it was immediately said it would go directly into rent costs, which have finally stabilized in Salt Lake. And I say stabilized, they haven't gone down. They just quit going up. And I've tried to explain this to people that it takes years for a non-acute housing correction and stuff to happen. But that's all tied into people's wage structures too. The other thing that you're seeing is the margins of cost deferment created by the federal government on this cost sink that is American healthcare is going away very rapidly. The subsidies in the ACA that made it affordable at all is gone. I mean, almost everyone I know who has insurance on the markets has gone up, and that includes a lot of those trades, by the way, because they're contractors or semi-contractors are contracted by the union, and in only certain states can the unions have the power to actually provide the insurance that they need, since they don't have a consistent boss. So you're seeing this across the board. You're also seeing monopsony pricing, meaning gig work is both having its price driven down, but also it's highly affected by volatility in wages anyway. So all the like Uber drivers and Door Dashers and all that shit, that requires a lot of extra money to be in the economy, and that's being tapped out, and that's showing up too. So what you're looking for in the foreseeable future is a tight labor market, so tight that you have them pushing papers about universal basic income. Problem with universal basic income is the same problem in minimum wage. If you don't peg it to inflation, it's fucking meaningless. And it's one of these things that kind of baffles me that people don't see, particularly now that inflation is all over the place. And one of the things that I want to tell you is our inflation stats are also pretty cooked on what is and is not in it. We've always exempted things like housing and medical and education costs from inflation. We also exempt childcare costs, which have gone gangbusters. It now costs more to put a child into daycare than it does to put a student through college. But aside from all that, you're also seeing energy prices spike. They're generally not often included in inflation indexes, and food which again is often not included in inflation indexes. So the inflation, which is on the rise on its official numbers, is probably actually a lot more. Food price range over the past 5 years has like gone up by between like 50 and 120%, depending on the item. That's way more than the 3 to 10% you've heard of from economists. And that affects people more than a lot of the stuff that you see. But tariffs have also brought up prices on consumer goods in such a way that they're also not really affordable. And I'm going to be frank with you, I don't see the Democrats reversing a lot of those tariffs, despite all their love of free trade now, because not even because it's going to protect jobs, because it's transparently not, and people don't understand how fucking markets work, including a lot of leftists. But the other problem that you're going to have is that are they going to want to get rid of that revenue on ways to pay down interest-bearing debt and get these bond markets under control? I don't see it. So, and despite what a lot of the left was saying, during the Biden administration, because they're stooges, and I have no problem saying that, the idea that inflation doesn't affect the working class is fucking ludicrous. Which I heard.
Who the fuck was saying that?
Jacobin magazine. Seth Ackerman wrote multiple articles on it.
Yeah, that's fucking dumb.
The reason why they were saying it is because inflation decreases the holdings of debt. But I was like, you know what the average blue collar poor person has a lot of? Yeah, debt. You know what they have? And what though? Yeah, their house, if they have one. You know what they don't have? Student loans, a ton of consumer debt, because they can't get it. They're going to be getting payday loans, which are unregulated by this fucking market anyway. So, like the debt that poor people get isn't affected in the same way by the Fed loan as the debt that everybody else gets. And I know that there's a difference between poor and the working class, and I want to be very clear that I understand that. But when you talk about debt and work and like in the way that it affects middle class people and saying it's going to affect poor people in the same way, on aggregate, the workers are hit from both ends because they're in both quartiles of the position. So it's just absurd to me. But people like the idea of being able to inflate wages up, even though that's also dumb because it's nominal. It's not real. Anyway, I agree with Pascal that we don't really have a left outside of certain. There's left in certain urban areas that there wasn't since the 1970s, but their effect on national policy is pretty much non-existent. And when people tell me about all the gains of socialists, and this is a problem I've had since I've joined a certain organization, I'm just like, well, can you tell me what national policy you've gotten a win on? And I'll get Biden era stuff that they had to compromise to get with Joe Manchin to get through. And I'm like, that doesn't count. And that wasn't yours. What have you actually won on, even on the state level, outside of New York City? And crickets. But because my point has been, if you think the point is just to get people in office and then they can't do anything, then all you're doing is wasting a bunch of people's energy. But anyway, I'm being more negative than normal. Go ahead.
Well, I came across the idea of peanut butter raises, and I decided to expand it out and call it the peanut butter economy, so that we could discuss more of the trends that are happening right now post the Great Resignation. And so let's find out about something called quiet hiring. So last time I did the show, I had some issues with the videos. I'm trying something new this time. Let's check this out.
Okay, so the term quiet quitting went viral last year, describing people who stay in their jobs but mentally take a step back. Now this year, there is a new workplace trend called quiet hiring.
Yeah, you'll want to hear about this one. It's a way to obtain new talent without hiring new employees. So while the term has a lot of people concerned about a recession, experts say it's just a fancy term for cutting headcount and giving more work to existing employees. Experts recommend this advice if your employer is quiet hiring. It's an opportunity for you as an employee to learn new skills, possibly transition to a different line of work. And experts recommend using the opportunity to negotiate a one-time bonus or salary increase for the first time of your rotation, or ask for a greater amount of paid time off or more flexibility within the company. Good advice.
Yeah. Good luck asking for more money nowadays.
They're penny pinching right now across the industries. All right, well, jobs are noticing more workers are calling out sick. And that's last year, just a record number of Americans, they missed work.
The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported nearly 19 million sick days. That means roughly 1.5 million people missing work each month. Monthly absences haven't dipped below 1 million since before the start of the pandemic. They peaked at 3.6 million last January.
I thought those stats were interesting at the end.
Very well done there, too, son. You cut that in there. Wow.
Thank you. I'm trying some things out. So, is quiet hiring just a professional managerial term for your boss discovered they can make one person do 3 jobs?
It's labor gouging, man. It's basically they're trying to suck more work out of workers. Good luck trying to argue for more pay as a result of them trying to shovel more work on you.
Why is this trend called hiring when no one new is being hired? What are we pretending not to know here? What are we doing here? Quiet hiring? Why is it called that?
I don't know. Maybe McKinsey got a nice payday to like, give it a nice spin. It's
Larry Ellison owns most of your fucking media, so like I don't know what you're like the great irony of a lot of left-wing things that we can look back of from the late 2010s and the first half of the Biden administration is there was a lot of faith that these tech oligarchs and media moguls were really woke. And that led to policies that consolidated power in their hand, including ways to get around federal regulations and discrimination laws, free speech codes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So your media now is cooked and you enabled it, you dumb fucks. But, and I mean, I used to get yelled at for caring about free speech because I'm like, it's not about, I don't even care. So I'm like, if someone like says reactionary shit around you, I don't care if you hit them, but like you don't empower the bureaucracies that are likely run by reactionaries who are sympathetic to them, who are just pretending to like you to get you to shut up, because they saw an opportunity. And I'm going to actually put this: progressive disciplining of these companies only works if you were woke. So like. There's been a fairly successful boycott of Target after they quit DEI policies. But you know who else didn't get boycotted? All the other major retailers who didn't do it in the first place, they did it minimally.
And they may have benefited by people not going to Target.
Right. So when we talk about journalists today, you have 3 problems. It's owned by like 4 people. It is alternative media is also given towards audience and also sponsor capture, more so actually than big media because it needs more money. It's leaner operations. And the most professional journalists come from a very particular class background, which is more that downwardly mobile professional strata. Actually, if we're honest, it's downwardly mobile professional strata, often with high bourgeois origins, who can go to elite universities and forego pay for 2 or 3 years and not get paid a lot in their actual salary to get influence and access pay through other means. That's how journalism is run. So they don't know much about the real economy either. Sorry.
I was gonna say pizza in the break room. That's how you get paid. I mean, I'm not gonna turn down pizza in the break room, but hey, maybe put that in my check instead. I would be mad at that.
It is funny that these journalists couldn't even themselves maintain the ruse of because they're like, good luck asking for your money in this economy. And I was like, even they know they're bullshitting. Like,
Yes.
they're even aware. Like, they can't play it with a straight face.
I thought that was great too. I don't know where they're based, but I'd watch them. I'd watch them too. Good duo there. So after the Great Resignation, why does capital now prefer stretching labor that stayed to replacing it?
Low profit rates in commodities and only profit rates available through rents, and even those rents are tied into the stock market, which is increasingly based off of stock buybacks and other things that used to be illegal. I can explain it really simply. Like even someone as liberal as Cory Doctorow gets this now. So it's hardly hidden. But the real issue, though, is if you look at it, it is like for any transaction in society right now, how many middlemen are there for anything? Mm-hmm. And all the ways to get around middlemen that you were supposed to see in neoliberalism actually expanded them. But like, look at like what is like you go today. You want to buy a hamburger at a traditionally working class institution like McDonald's. Not great for you, but it was fairly cheap. Today, you're paying for the property speculation on the stupid box that it's in that now looks like every other stupid box because it's designed to be sold immediately. You're paying for a bunch of fixed capital inputs in terms of all these machines that are trying to replace people. What you're discovering, though, is when you replace wages, it's harder to exploit people when prices are pushed down the cost. So costs just get more and more real on all parts of the chain. The supply chain, even for McDonald's, where it's fairly captive, is massive. You got to deal with increases in all parts of your inputs, and including dealing with downstream tariffs and not being to offset internal cost by buying from outside markets because you're going to get tariffed to shit. And you're no longer even necessarily catering to the same demographic anymore, because you think you can get a bunch of money that got into the chain during the fast casual dining phase of the late aught teens. So everything involved in that process is prices has gone up. How are you going to squeeze more out of any of your supply chain? They're not going to give either. They just won't supply to you. So you're going to get it from two places: your customer and your labor force, which is, by the way, why I don't accept the term neo-feudalism, because you still actually do have a labor force and a labor market. But a lot of the other things are true. You are mostly dealing with things that are making any money at all off rents. But look at what's happening to almost all these chains. They're going out of business because they can't make a profit. This is only going to get worse, because if everything's getting more expensive, pay is stagnating, government debt is out of control. And I'm not saying that because I'm a believer that you need neoliberal austerity. I'm saying that because they're promising interest payments on these loans, which they are tied to pay. And if they don't pay, the dollar status in the global market goes down, which it's already doing anyway. So your outside purchasing power gets weakened if you can't make up your bond payments. This is the part of MMT no one ever fucking talks about. So you have that problem too. My hope right now is that it's going to actually make people quit being half-ass on their solutions to things, because these half-ass solutions often accelerate processes that are deeply bad. You either go all the way or you don't. And I know a lot of our friends aren't going to like that because it implies some things that go against their basic understanding. But I mean, like, the idea that you're going to, I mean, when we talk about like this society right now, and you want to talk about like what are your outlet measures? Well, you have less democratic outlet measures than before. You have the cities are being gerrymandered openly. You have people talking about revoking the 13th and 14th Amendment openly again. You haven't heard that shit since the 1960s. That takes your democratic route out. You have a depleted labor market with things like quiet hiring, which are just rebrandings of trying to not just get you to do one job, but three, which I've seen a lot, even in the public sector. I see more and more things being done more and more poorly because, they're now saying, oh, with AI, you can now do these 5 jobs and you can totally keep up with all that. And also, these tech monopolies are incredibly fragile. I work for, you've heard a lot of whining about this with colleges, but Canvas got security hacked.
Yep.
I hate to
that was
tell
on
you that,
Thursday.
Yeah, I hate to tell you guys, but colleges are not even the primary user of Canvas at secondary schools.
Wow.
Yep.
Like, my state has a deal with Instructure where we all use in the secondary schools Instructure. These hacks bring this down. So you have also a tech system which the entire workflow downward is now dependent on. Very, very fragile and easy to shut down. You've already seen it before things like Canvas. You've seen it on these various Amazon service hacks. It shut half the planet down for a few hours. Like, these are incredibly fragile systems. What is a worker going to do to negotiate in that when they can't even necessarily always have the access to the tool to do their work because they don't work off of their own labor? And that is a fundamental difference in most of the way that people model socialism from the early 19th and early 20th centuries, where, these IP laws were not like, they couldn't shut your hammer down. Or, I own a printer free and clear, but because of IP laws, they can stick a thing that monitors my ink there, and now I have to have a subscription to print with my own priorly published and free and clear printer. Like, this is what they're doing. And so you're getting hit by all ends, but you don't have democratic outlets for it either. We had a massive vote on a data station that, yes, it's going to have its own power plant, and yes, it's supposed to recycle water, but its power usage within a year, it's double the entire usage of my state. And its water usage is ill understood in the second driest state in the country.
Do you know how much water the fucking the enormous NSA data center takes up out of what is allocated for Salt Lake?
It's like most of it.
Yeah, it's insane, and it not to totally derail, but all of this is tied up in the apparatus of the security state.
That's the only reason the Mac 7 is still profitable.
Yeah,
the tying all the AI, even if it doesn't work, into the national defense mechanism means that they get free money printed, because even though we don't have enough money for Medicaid and Medicare, and we're kicking grannies out and saddling children with the debts of their parents now. By the way, that's happening in 20 states, and that's only going to get worse. The big beautiful bill provisions that really cut Medicaid have not kicked in yet. Most of them hit after the midterms are over. But you just have people openly ignoring the democratic process left and right, for these data centers. They also don't give a shit about IP laws anymore, except for them. And it is very clear across the board that law is now a state of exception. It only applies to certain people. And most of the infrastructure that these billionaires rely on, they didn't even build. So I don't want to hear that shit anymore, even from a capitalist standpoint. At least at least the old train magnets and shit built the shit that they use for their monopsonization, but these guys didn't even do that. They basically convinced Barack Obama to give them sweetheart government deals and use that to get monopsony purchasing power and then change sides. So, you know, the left has a lot to answer for these fuckers too, and for the situation that we're in. And, you know, to go back to the quiet hiring thing. The real thing that AI enables you to do that I've seen is multitask quickly, but poorly. Like, because you have to double check it so much because it hallucinates so damn much. And the smarter the models get, the more hallucinations they do. Now, there are real efficiency gains. Like coding really is dead. Like, it's now an obsolete field. But people keep on asking me, where are the new jobs coming from this? And I'm like, well, the funny thing is, the only way this can make money is if it doesn't actually provide new jobs.
Is AI a serious bubble?
Yes.
Yes. But the issue is now that it's tied into the machinery of war, it doesn't so much matter that it's a bubble. You can float it off of direct government investment. There's an article that was written by Dylan Riley and Robert Brenner about Biden that talks about political capitalism, which I always thought was a misnomer because capitalism is always political, but was talking about how since profit weights are low, the government's going to be deciding winners and losers in the market. And, you know, you have your normal progressives who don't understand that profit rates are not the same thing as fucking revenues. And because they're like, oh, revenues are high. There's so much profit amortization. I'm like, not in raw commodities. There's not. The actual, you know, the actual thing is, the actual physical things that you get aren't what these companies are making money off of. They're making money off of IP, which is effectively a form of rent. And you see that in everywhere. That's why everything is driven to quit producing physical stuff and start collecting rents. And the irony is, and why this is maybe hard for people to recognize when they think about neoliberalism, is rent collection takes a strong fucking central state because you got to be able to enforce the rents. And whereas commodity selling, you exploit without the need of as much of a central state because you made the commodities, they're a little bit easier to hold. The problem is their profits go down over time. And if you look at profit rates, it's pretty obvious that that's true. I mean, people who argue with me off of stock markets and revenue, but not off of what the actual profit per unit is in any given market. And they are quite low. I mean, you know, this is the thing. There are certain fields where people want raises where there isn't the money and what the people are actually doing in the field to give it to them. This is the problem with sectional organization of your economy. Is like, this is what happens. Now you could do a lot better. I mean, if you think about even on margin, even with low profit rates, we're squeezing workers so bad that even like eating into, you know, 0.02% of the profits may increase their pay like $2, $3 an hour. But if you also are being hit with inflation because these costs are being pushed downstream, that's not going to matter that much. I mean, how many of it, like, I'm just going to put it to you this way. In Utah, teacher's salary has starting teacher salary has more than doubled in 11 years. However, when you adjust for the cost of living here, which went insane after 2020, we're one of the fastest inflation markets in the country. Housing prices went from $100,000 and $150,000 on average around 2010 to $250,000 to $300,000 on average around 2019 to $600,000 on average in 2024. That's nuts. And the problem that you're going to have is any attempt to fix this that doesn't lead to a housing crash is going to also affect things. I mean, I think the issue that I'm trying to drive home, maybe in a really doomy and gloomy way, is that every bit of this is connected to every other bit of this. So if you try to piecemeal fix one part of it, you're not going to be able to, because it's tied into everything else. Now, these tech oligarchs, they're basically getting money printed for them from the federal government at this point. And that's going to keep them, and that's going to keep investments high, because the only thing holding most of the damn stock market up is the Mag 7. And if you look at the Mag 7, only 2 of the companies are actually profitable, and those are 2 that actually produce physical commodities. So physical commodities still matter. That's why these data centers matter. But let's say the AI bubble pops. You now have all these massive data center layouts that are useless. What are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that compute? What do you want to do with the fact that to make money, these companies aren't actually expanding their production for demand? They're literally shrinking demand to only deal with corporate purchasing. And when you also think about real commodities, look at commodities markets. If you look at what the wealthy are spending money on now, they aren't spending money on diamonds or commodities. They're spending money on 2 things: investments and experiences. The experiences are almost pure layouts, which also is why your forms of entertainment are getting unaffordable for common people. A concert that used to be $50 is now $300. Coachella used to be $100 to enter. I don't even want to figure out what it costs, like a fucking mortgage or something to go now. All these things, that many of which were not even originally branded as luxury experiences, have been captured by the luxury market. And that is floating up large portions of the economy. And even people like me are affected by it. Like if I went back into private school teaching, which I don't foresee myself doing in the immediate future, but if I did, you know who I would serve? These fuckers. Not, even as states do their voucher things and hurt private schools, I'm not going to be teaching normal kids. So the elite schools aren't going to take them. You idiots. That ruins their elite market share. They're not going to take normies. They'd have to actually provide services for that. So it's one of these things where you're seeing everything in the system really come to the head. And the thing is, we also see further breakages down the line. COVID was like a warning sign. I have no idea what this hantavirus is going to do, but I don't suspect it's going to be good. Even if it's minor, and it probably will be minor. There are vaccines on the way, but with our current Department of Health, good luck getting people to take them. The other thing that we are looking at is the Strait of Hormuz is not a problem that you can just fix by air war. I think even Trump realizes a ground war would lead to massive rebellion in the country. Particularly if it required a Zoomer draft. And not to insult my Zoomer friends here, but they're not a particularly robust generation to begin with. You guys are dying of all kinds of shit, like in your 20s. Like encephalitis. Stuff I'm seeing people die young of lately is like kind of nuts. So, and you're not a big generation either. So there's not a lot of options. Plus, like, who's cooperating enough for U.S. to allow ground troops in any scale? Like, I guess you could go drop them off in Afghanistan or Pakistan, maybe. Maybe get a few into the Gulf, but you got to go through the missile range. But you're not getting them through Spain. You're not getting them through Turkey, probably. So
that's a good point.
So things are complicated there too, and it's not like government spending is ramping down either. It's just ramping down for you. Government spending, all kinds of the amount. Like just to put it in perspective, 28% of the entire GDP spent in all of the U.S.'s history has been under Donald Trump.
Wow.
I heard that recently. Yeah.
So they're
Quite a
clawing stuff
statistic.
back so they can pay themselves. They're not putting the country on further ground. So it's crazy to me that I guess I want to tell you guys, you guys would be a lot more militant than you are if you want to get change. But anyway, I'm gonna
Good point. Well, to
I
your,
want
to
to
your
ask just float another quick question.
Sure.
In terms of like the IPification of the economy, how much was like John Deere a canary in the coal mine? Because I think that they started the kind of shit that we see in a lot of this, like what 2010s.
Yeah.
Yes.
John Deere was one, and then what happened, and if you guys didn't know, fast food also got hit by this. They were trying to make everything, like put everything in machines, but make the machines rented, not built and purchased by so it's another cost outlay for the franchisee. Anyway.
And no right to repair. So this person made this comment, PS2 couldn't shut your tractor down, but yes, they can shut your tractor down, especially if it's John
And they
Deere.
will.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, they're going to be able to do it in every car in the country by 2027. That's from a certain date.
Yeah. So, that no right to repair is also really horrible. We have a super chat.
That's why I drive a car from 2003.
I mean, that's what it's going to be. I mean,
the security reason, nothing to do with how much I can afford.
I held on to my Adobe Creative Suite before they put everything in the cloud for as long as I possibly could, and that's what it's like.
They're trying to put all your compute in the cloud, period, so they have control over it and write the train on it too.
And I don't like that. Dizzle McFizzle sent us a super chat that says, Jesus, y'all really know how to destroy morale. Can we talk about the NBA playoffs? I will answer that question. The answer is no.
Well, I can talk about the owner of the Knicks is kind of a big player in the surveillance infrastructure, and like
yes,
MSG and all of these like major stadiums. I think he also owns the Sphere in Vegas. They're all being used as training grounds for surveillance technology.
If you're interested in that topic, look up a guy named FWMJ, Frank William Miller Jr., the owner of the Knicks, has got a fatwa out on him and has been using surveillance technology to make sure he does not come to any games, and if he does, he gets kicked out. Check him out. He's an interesting guy. So yeah, let's check out another topic here. We're going to jump into another video, and I'd like to get you guys' takes on it.
Meet John Doe. He's in his early 20s and eager to jump into the workforce. He sees a job listing that looks perfect to him. So he brushes up his resume, he writes an awesome cover letter, applies, and then waits. So after a month or so, he actually sees the same job posting relisted, which makes him super frustrated. John isn't alone. Many people are frustrated by applying to these kinds of jobs that seem to have no intention of hiring anyone.
If you are in the position of trying to find a new job, of course you don't want to waste your time applying for these ghost jobs.
But it turns out all those open job postings that you see online might not even be real.
Ghost jobs are a phenomenon that have existed for a long time, but they've come to light much more in recent years, and they've become much more of a significant issue in the job market.
4 in 10 companies posted fake job listings in 2024, and 3 in 10 are currently advertising for a role that isn't real, according to a May survey from Resume Builder.
The rise of ghost job posting definitely points to a cooling in the economy.
Fun stuff. Ghost jobs. At what point does fake hiring become some type of market fraud? Pascal, what do you think? What do you think of ghost jobs?
Well, no one's being hired with the ghost jobs. It's not fake hiring. It's fake job advertising, which is even more dangerous.
Do you think that should be illegal, or is it already illegal?
Do we have laws anymore? Anyway, go ahead.
Does it matter?
I don't think that it is illegal. I mean, I think it's something that should be. I don't know if I should say regulated or. I don't know. That's a tough one. Do we need a whole regulation of the employment sector that discourages posting fake jobs? Maybe.
I mean, maybe. I think they're working on legislation in Canada as well as California and maybe Colorado. Go ahead.
Posting fake shit is like explicitly encouraged by VCs. Like that's what growth hacking is. It's lying to inflate your perceived value.
Yeah. There's 3 reasons why they do it. So people are asking why you would post fake jobs. One, it creates a fear that you are going to lay people off or are expanding. But your expansion would be a cost, so you're not going to. So that cost could be used as a reason to not raise workers' pay. The other thing that it does, and this is more likely what it's being done for now, is to collect massive amounts of information that can be sold to data brokers that's sensitive that you just turn over in a resume. And they do it. And it's I mean, Quinn's right. It's explicitly encouraged right now. And then on top of that, there are other reasons why it happens. So another thing is for government jobs, there's often a requirement for posting, even if they know who they're going to hire, which means they waste a lot of people's times for government jobs. And remember how many people tried in the government jobs too. So, and you can get information from that. And you should assume that every transaction or everything you do is being surveilled and used in an algorithm by both Amazon and the government at this point. I mean, what people were telling me to do to protect your privacy was like have a second phone that you use for your phone for security purposes when you use two-factor verification. Because the other thing this is all doing is tiring all your information into centralized databases, which states are also expanding by age checks and stuff to get on the internet, and trying to make VPNs illegal, which are being pushed in multiple countries at once right now. The other thing I want to remind people, this is not only a U.S. phenomenon. You live in a global economy.
Do I no longer have to shred my mail that has my social on it? Are people not going through mail anymore looking for your private information?
That would be a very labor-intensive and dumb way to do it when I can just have Claude create a program that'll hack it for you.
Somebody
I'm just,
told me
looking through my texts. This one. This one. Let's see. Yep. This one. These are all fake job listings that they are texting me, being like, "Hey, we have. I'm Beth from Amazon Recruitment Group. 4 days a week, 500 each day, secured benefits. Don't let this transformative chance slip away." Like, this is scam texts used to be like, I'm a Nigerian prince. I need you to launder my money for me. Now it's like, hey, we have a job. Would you like to be hired? Would you like to work for us? Like, it's fucking insane.
True. Well, let me ask you, Quinn. How many fake opportunities do people your age feel like they have to endure before they stop believing the job market is even real?
I mean, like, nobody really believes the job market's real. Like,
you have to know somebody to get a job, man.
Yeah.
We're back to the age of informal hiring, which, by the way, means that we can get around all those pesky regulations about hiring black people and other such things. So, I mean, if you think the stats are bad for men in general, which they are terrible on these like online applications, people have looked at even real jobs that use these AI sorters. Black men don't get hired ever. Yeah,
it's super racialized.
This is something that's new. But the thing is, when you were, I get that whole rant I was given about trying to empower these things to get around legal restrictions, to help the left in wokeness or whatever the hell. Those have all been used now to get around all kinds of things that it should have been obvious that they would have been used to get around. I mean, and I don't know. I know I sound all doom and gloomy, but I also just want to. I'm not actually doom and gloomy because I do think that what is happening is people are losing the ability to lie to themselves about what all this stuff is. Like, how can you even call billionaire job creators at this point? Like, it's just transparent. And it's not just, and I'll be honest with you, it's not just on the left. Like I know reactionary former MAGA people who are still pretty damn reactionary, who are also incensed by this stuff because they know their future is being taken away from them. And they're beginning to run out of ways to blame the libs for it. So it's going to be interesting where this all goes. But my prediction is we still have to be realistic about things. And what a lot of people are hedging their bets on right now, I don't know. I mean, they seem to be hedging their bets on the law and on local elections. And I don't mean to tell you, but the law is not being consistently applied to anyone. In fact, we can just there are constitutional articles that aren't even amendments, like the Emoluments Clause, that have just been pissed on actively. So I don't know what people think. The other thing it's becoming very clear to a lot of people is we are run by predatory oligarchs. And I think that's going to manifest as conspiracyism and hucksterism, but I also think it's going to radicalize a lot of people. And the question is,
it already
what are we going
is.
to do? Yeah, but what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
Like, people being
We're going to burn down warehouses and say all you had to do was pay me a living wage, which...
Or we're going to take a train across the country and write a screed about pedophiles in office.
Which is not connected to a larger movement.
No.
No, that's not Ricky bullshit. I don't want to go into history legend, but that's not Nicky bullshit. So, and you can't really opt out anymore either. Like,
how else are you supposed to get a job?
Or even how do you spend money? So, anyway.
Well, I want to get a better understanding of your guys' take on, is job hunting now a humiliation ritual? Popular phrase now, but what's your take? Quinn, what's your take on the humiliation involved in job hunting? You've been job hunting recently.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yes.
Like, I'm still, if you got an architecture firm and you're hiring, let me know, because I need a real job. Like, the only reason I'm not like shitting my pants freaking out is because I have freelance work to fall back on. But like, I've like applied to what, like 70 job listings in the last like month and a half, and I've gotten like 4 interviews, maybe. Like it's exhausting. Like, it's emotionally draining, and at the end of it, it's like a crapshoot, because like half the time they're like, okay, we're looking. Oh shit! Actually, we just got this project got funding pulled. We're not actually going to hire anyone.
Exactly.
And this is in an industry that's like slight. Like, I went to school for journalism. There's a reason I fucking left that shit fast. Like, Varn is not wrong. The pay is dog shit. And no one's hiring. It's the only people that are the only real work that you can get in journalism these days, if you don't have extreme amounts of independent wealth, is working for trade publications. Like, if you want to get a job writing, get something that has independent funding and needs to like fluff its numbers.
Work for a trade publication and get a degree in technical writing.
Yeah,
not in journalism and even that's going to be questionable. But like, and when you do your technical writing degree, learn about machine learning, because half your shit's going to be written by AI anyway. You're going to be checking it and make sure it's not hallucinating. I teach a technical writing class, so I actually talk about this a good bit. But like, the journalism's been dying for 30 years.
Yes.
But the other thing is it's a field that has increasing social importance because it's how so many people are dependent on natural means for how to even perceive local things, which is kind of unfortunate because, me explaining to people that Mondani's conditions in New York are not anyone's in fucking Utah is sometimes falls on deaf ears. And part of that has to do with money. Like not even if you're a candidate here and you live in a state like New York, California, you can get matching funds, but everywhere else, those more working class candidates are going to need more patronage. And I hate to tell you, that means that a lot of these working class candidates you see from these purplish states are actually going to seek patronage pretty fucking quickly, because they're going to run out of money, and the DSA legally couldn't provide it if it had it, and it doesn't have it anyway. So the reason why the DSA can't legally provide it is because the DSA is an NGO. It is a 504(3)(c), I think, which means it's a political advocacy NGO, and it's got pretty strict caps on spending per candidate. And while there are PACs, what they mostly offer is on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground labor, and that's great to get you elected. Doesn't do shit for you after you're in office. As we should have learned from Obama in 2008.
Well, these trends all bleed into each other and feed into each other, and I guess they're all responses to the same thing. Let's check out another video and get your opinions on this.
Meet John Doe. He's in his early 20s and eager to jump into the workforce.
I don't know anybody right now, at least in my position, that's job hopping. Doesn't matter what's going on, I'm there to hug my job tightly, make sure it never leaves me.
In this era of the Trump economy, job hopping is out, or job hugging, or the big stay, whatever you want to call it, that's in. So I understand this goes both ways. We just heard someone saying that they're holding their job tight and kissing it and saying goodnight. But then I'm also hearing that employers are hoarding, right? Keeping employees on, even if they don't think they're essential, because they don't want to do layoffs right away. So what's going on?
The challenge that we're having as employers more and more is that people don't have the skills that we need. So it's a really interesting point. We're holding the people, we're going to train them, you're going to see more investment in people. So it's not, the headline was employers are going to throw away employees. That's not true. We're going to do our best to get the best out of them because we're just not sure that we're going to find better in the market.
Pascal, what's your take on that video?
I don't know how true that can be. If there's such a shortage of quality jobs, there's got to be a surplus of people looking for them. So wouldn't that mean that there are more workers who are able to fulfill their roles? I mean, he's saying that the people don't have the skills to do the jobs. Do you guys actually believe that?
Yes, I do actually.
Really?
Is that because of the quality of education depreciation?
There's all kinds of reasons. I think it's quality education appreciation. It's the fact that people are now more and more invested in legacy rent-seeking systems, which you have to already be trained to know, and you're not going to learn in college anyway because they're proprietary. I do think that we have to, literacy rates for young people are very low. I mean, I know that I sound like a boomer when I say this, but every stat backs this up, except for the graduation stats, which means as you graduate more and more people who are illiterate, it both lowers the currency of a degree of anything. It's lower the currency, not just of a diploma, but of a degree itself. But the other thing it does is that it creates a cost for getting that skilling yourself. And increasingly, companies don't really trust that educational institutions are going to do that, because that's not what educational institutions are designed to do. I know this baffles people when I say this, but most big universities don't make their money off of undergrad. They make their money off of hospitals, endowments, graduate schools, and grants from the federal government, and that's just went away for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know what? Undergrads are like way down. So I do think there's some realistic. That's not because Zoomers are stupid. It's not because they're particularly lazy. I actually don't believe that. It's that they have brought up in systems that were not built to skill them for what things are right now. Also, we had a massive technology change in schools with universities and secondary and primary schools are notoriously conservative institutions, small c, not big C. They're not politically, ideologically conservative, but they're conservative and they take decades to change and implement anything. And they often give up before they finish implementation too, as far as primary and secondary schools go. We've been experimenting with education massively the past 25 years. We change out every 5 years. How long does it take to educate a child? Doesn't it take, in our country, 12? So if you change the system every 5 years, it means the students have gone through 5 or 6 major changes in their educational structure without even completing shit. So we don't know if it works or not. It doesn't, but we don't know that it works anyway. I mean, some of these things could if we ever finish implementing them, but we don't. The other thing that this means is that we've seen a lot of you're going to see a lot of, and I think we are seeing this, like finally reducing middle management. But yeah, it's interesting where we're at. So I do think I think some employers are hoarding labor if they're skilled, Pascal. But this is the thing. A lot of labor that's open for work right now is not skilled labor. And I know it's on. I mean, I don't want to say that blue collar work is unskilled. The trades definitely are unskilled, and it takes a certain amount of skill to be a successful service worker. I'm not saying it doesn't, but these are skills that you learn on the job itself. So there's hesitation there too. Go ahead.
Real quick, when we're saying skilled, are we talking about like a technical process of being like trained in a specific skill, or
Correct.
Skilled as in like being good at your job?
I think
those are different.
Those are different things. I would actually say one of the things that we have is general de-skilling all across the board because of an over-reliance on technology. But that is separate than what I'm talking about here, which is specific skills that you need on a job that you often get on a job. So for example, like I'm a certified forklift operator, believe it or not, from a job I had 20 years ago. But I got that on the job. I didn't go to school and learn to use a forklift. So I haven't worked a blue collar job for anything other than summer work in like 15 years. My point about bringing that up though is like there was a trend for a long time for institutions to outsource their training to universities and public schools, because that's it's a free rider principle where the free rider is a corporation, but they also didn't want to pay the social cost of maintaining those systems. And this is the result of that. So if you don't want to spend money on schools, you don't want to ensure schools are any good, you don't want to admit that you need to like track students and help them get in careers that they're all going to be good at. Instead, you lie to everyone and tell them that they're going to somehow get white collar work in college. That creates a massive bottleneck of people who really are also not trained for the job market, even though they are highly trained. So even the literate people are people who went in for certain things are not going in for the things the job market needs right now. I do think that's true. The issue is, if you're not hiring new people, where are you going to skill these younger workers in? You're not. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have a lost generation and a half, probably, of a lot of people who are forced into gig work. And the other thing a lot of these corporations want to do is an excuse to push more and more things into gig work where they can. And so that means, holding the areas where you really can't do that easily because you need certain kinds of compliance really tightly, but then not expanding anywhere else because you can use contractors for that. And with the contractors, you don't have to pay nearly as many, benefits and whatever. And I do hate to tell people benefits costs are not insignificant. I'm not, this is not me pitting the poor capitalist, but the state of Utah lists my cost to the public at its number value, not at my salary. So I know what the benefits cost are because there's a bunch of private companies, raising the cost of all those benefits too. It's not just that the corporations are parasiting on us; they're also parasiting on each other and on the public sector. So this means that onboarding people super expensive. Your current costs you already know. You can sometimes, a lot of companies will lay people off in a hotter labor market because they can do things like get rid of seniority pay or whatever. But if you looks like you're in a recession and people are job hugging, you don't need to get rid of seniority pay. You just lower your fucking pay. Or actually what you do is you just don't move it at all. You give like 1% raises, which are sub-nominal to you. And you watch costs increase everywhere else. So yeah, they are hugging on because they can right now, because workers who have a job, they can also be like, we want to train you, and it looks like an opportunity, but also you're now doing 5 jobs and you're afraid because the job market shit. So we're holding on to you and not leaving. And the other thing, Pascal, that I think we need to look at very seriously is how large the baby boomers were as a generation, and now they are gone from the workforce, which does mean if you factor out all those losses from people leaving the workforce just from age, which really started hitting during COVID. I mean, yeah, we lost 1 million people, who died during COVID, but they lost way more than that in workers, and they never came back. That's age. It's just age. We're a very old country, in the sense of like the average age. Like I go to neighborhoods now. You don't see a single person who doesn't have gray hair. So all this stuff is a correction, and what I'm seeing with the big beautiful bill is that's going to enable people to claw even that what would be a generational wealth transfer downward out too. So the wealth of the baby boomers won't go to their kids, and even though it wasn't going to their kids that much now. The other thing that you're going to see is there's eventually going to be a housing correction. That may sound like it's good, and this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't under capitalism problem. But what's going to happen to all those houses? Because right now, unless you're in a hot market like the Bay Area, which is hot because of AI, most housing markets have something like double the stock, and they're not moving their prices down because the save incentives on taking losses for rental property aren't really there for commercial property, but there's a lot of incentive in a neighborhood not to lower your prices because it's going to drop everyone's home value, which means that these are going to sit on the market. The thing is, they can't sit on the market forever, and you're going to see a collapse in value there too. And unlike 2008, which was caused by subprime lending and bad bundling, this will be caused by an actual housing crisis that does not involve the subprime market. It's going to happen in the quote-unquote prime market. And I don't know what that means because, frankly, in the United States, we don't have a history of that. We've had an expanding population to make sure that never happens. And that's not true now.
Quinn, among people your age, since you're the spokesperson for your generation today, does staying at a bad job feel like caution and fear, or does it feel like just survival? What you have to do now?
Both.
Hmm.
Like I don't know. Like I know people that most of the people I go to school with live with their parents, and if they have a job, like I know one of my buddies makes $12.50 an hour, the other one makes 18, and that's not like that sucks. Like that's not good pay, but the just having that job on paper is better than nothing, and like the even the fear of like if I leave this job I gotta find another one, which is a crapshoot, and then I have to be like, oh yeah, here's my 8 months of like desperate unemployment job applications. That looks great on my resume. And all of this stuff kind of compounds to make, I think, most people very conservative in their willingness to kind of bunch out or like push against not great compensation structures. I'm thinking about also like I know a couple people who worked at like really small, like, you know, mom and pop small business, like, you know, under 10 employees who like, you know, maybe we try to unionize and then they all get fired. Like, it's kind of rough. And I think most people are, at least most people I know are, and this is like, you know, in the New York metro area, this is supposed to be a pretty good market. There's lots of money flowing around. People are very, very cautious to leave anything that's stable.
I hear you. I do. Pascal, what do you think about this? We've got this comment from Henry. Henry says, work a trade, be a plumber, everybody poops. Budding anarchist says, electrician plumber. And then also says, home healthcare work is the top job. Are people safe in the trades, do you think?
I mean, I don't think AI precludes the ability of in infiltrating the trades at all. I think it's just a matter of them creating the technology that's able to do that kind of work.
Well, also, like, you know, as we
also,
talked about
everyone
before a
goes
little
to
bit,
those jobs, there's going to be less of them available, and they're also going to go down in value.
yeah, that's the private equity coming in and bulldozing everything.
Well, I mean, everybody was supposed to be coding, right? Just a few years ago, and the coal miners were gonna learn to code, and then, you know, where's that now?
That was always an attempt to drive elite wages down, though. That's why there's never been a real shortage of science-educated labor in the United States, except in very specific areas of coding, of which coding was one. And we encouraged all the people to do that because it would lower the rate of capture. If everyone goes into the fucking trades, which are also not they're less recession resistant than most white collar work anyway. Like even in good economic conditions, the value of those trades will clash. I've already told you what's going to happen with home healthcare work because a lot of that was paid for by Medicare. Medicare rules. Look at what's happening in Arizona right now because they implemented these rules early. It's massive collapse of these healthcare markets. Sure, you might get home healthcare work for a while. The thing is, a lot of you go off folk wisdom. You're like fucking Mike Rowe. Which also means you're economically illiterate and easy.
He was a very rich man, by the way, pretending to be, you know, working class.
But I mean, no, like when you hear about the trades can't be replaced. Oh man, yeah, they can. You can be made to be work more efficient. You have private equity there. The other thing is, some of these trades, like everyone needs to poop. Okay, plumbers make a decent amount of money because there's not a lot of plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
The moment there's a lot of plumbers, the rules of supply and demand do apply in a capitalist market. The other thing is, if everyone does that, society falls apart because you can't. Who's going to be a market for the fucking plumbers if the only people who have jobs are people who went into plumbing and nobody else has jobs? Because that's a fucking internal circular economy. Like, none of this makes sense. And it is a good short-term answer if you're one of the first people in the field. Just like if you're one of the first people in investments, you're going to do well. Everyone after you is probably a sucker. See Bitcoin. But this is also true for entering like trades like this or going in the coding. The top coders still have jobs. They don't have the purchasing power they used to have. They don't have the perks. They don't have the benefits, but they still have jobs. It's people who went into coding after them and aren't getting shit at all. And people who went in after COVID when it looked like that was going to be a super growth jobs. And liability insurance, the insurances are all jacking up on everything. Because again, private equities in that too. Private equities and reinsurance, which means the people who insure the insurance are also being owned by the people who own the insurance. And that's led to certain things like you guys notice that Geico isn't running that many ads anymore. It's because they're trying to get out of consumer insurance and more into reinsurance to get more back-end market capture, leaving that to suckers like Liberty Mutual and whatever else. I used to work in insurance, so I keep up with the trades there.
I mean, what are the big dogs? Like, what's Prudential doing these days?
They're getting into more and more investments. There's a lot of like cap lowering for what they can, for how much they have to hold to be able to pay out stuff in the first place. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I get mad when people say like, yeah, if you go into plumbing right now, you can have a job. But if you all do it, you might all have a job that pays $16 an hour and you're covered in literal shit. Whereas right now it might pay $50 an hour. If you all become electricians, the market value of that goes down. Supply and demand does apply to labor. There's nothing in Marxism that indicates anything else. The hope for socialists is always that if you even sectional bargaining leaves you somewhat open to sector collapse. Right? That's why you always wanted the unification of the working class into a political party. But we don't even do sectional bargaining. We do firm bargaining. All right. So like I've tried to explain to people, Norway barely has a minimum wage. They don't need one because the unions negotiate by sector. Right? But even they get open up to sector collapse. Which is, how you're able to get some neoliberal reforms into the Scandinavian countries, the worst being Sweden, the least being probably Norway, Denmark being in the middle. But also they have to offset their work too, which is why they do all that migrant labor stuff. So, yeah, exactly. You're getting priced out by Slavs or whatever else. So, I mean, a lot of people want a nice way to like subsist on capitalism, and you might be able to do it for yourself for a little while. I make an okay living as a teacher, but you know what's going to happen? They have hit the schools so bad. They're doing what I said they do in teaching, which is to make us work an overflow so long that we were about to break, give us money right towards the end, and then claw it back because birth rates are so low. That's like deliberate policy. So it's not that they're lowering our pay. They are lowering our benefits. It's that they make us do more and more work for that pay. And that's going to happen to a lot of people. And then you have the elderly and people like Quinn who are just shut out. And more people want something in the gig market. I mean, to be fair, yeah, you probably could. The Poles, the Mexicans of Europe. But I don't know. M. Tucson, can we talk about something positive? Because even I'm bumming myself out.
I mean, it's difficult because I have more stuff I wanted to talk about, but like, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I think it's important for, I guess, the workers to know what's going on and what capitalism is doing right now. Just
is that who we're talking to?
The
working masses.
The working masses, yeah. I mean, it might give you a chance to predict things a little better and maybe navigate some things better for yourself, or maybe there is a certain amount of hope in certain things you should not have, and you'll be better off for not having that.
This is a paper that went viral a few years ago called Deep Adaptation. It's mostly talking about the climate crisis, but let me try to find the quote. However, the range of ancient wisdom traditions see a significant place for hopelessness and despair. Contemporary reflections on people's emotional and even spiritual growth as a result of their hopelessness and despair align with these ancient ideals. The loss of a capability, a loved one, or a way of life, or the receipt of a terminal diagnosis have all been reported or personally experienced as a trigger of a new way of understanding and perceiving self and the world, with hopelessness and despair becoming a necessary step in the process. In such contexts, hope is not a good thing to maintain, as it depends on what one is hoping for. When the debate raged about the value of the New Yorker article, some commentators picked up on this theme. In abandoning hope that one way of life will continue, we open up the space for alternative hopes.
Alternative hopes.
That's the most optimistic I can be.
Well, yes. I mean, to your point, they're talking about the death of a loved one or receiving some bad medical news or whatever. Sometimes something needs to die, in a sense, for us to move on and transmute and reclaim things. And maybe this is just that period.
I do think it is good for us to give up the delusions that we're getting Fordism back, that we're getting Keynesian social democracy back, which was a very specific period of social democracy in Europe, that we're getting honestly, if I can kill the idea of automated luxury communism, I'd like to kill that too. And I'm not even against technology. I don't think AI is inherently bad. I know, controversial, but even though I do think unused under certain use cases under current market conditions, instead of unlocking human potential, it actually limits it. But that's true for like most technologies that we have that would be very good for humanity, that have been developed under capital and used in a way to weaken us. Cars wouldn't, the way we've done them is bad for the environment, but they're not inherently bad. The problem that you also have is path dependency. We are all path dependent whether we like it or not. We all have to work in this society, eat in this society. Every dumb fuck libertarian's like, oh, you live in a capitalist society. Why don't you go off and join a commune? Because that's not really possible to do, and I would still be participating in capitalism even if I did. I could go join a commune. You know what we do? We collectively own a capitalist property that we have to pay rent on or a mortgage on, and we collectively may own a business and split the profits. Woo! I have not escaped capitalism by doing that. Yeah.
Cooperative firms in Spain have not overturned capitalism in Europe.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mondragon has not ended capitalism. It hasn't even ended exploitation in Mondragon.
Exactly.
So it's one of these things that I hear people get all like excited about. No, Broham, but does that mean co-ops are bad? No, it doesn't. Co-ops are probably a better way to organize labor. You'll have more say in it, but they're not inherently good either, and they're sectionally limited. And I know I make people sound despair, but like we've been on path dependencies and like we're gonna get our New Deal back. Mm-hmm. You know what it took to get the New Deal in the first fucking place?
Organized communism in the U.S. as an actual threat to the working order.
You needed socialism in the U.S. You needed a global revolution in multiple countries and a world war that killed massive amounts of population. And the obvious end of easy imperialism and the more complicated financial imperialism. You needed all those things to even get what you got in the New Deal, which, by the way, is not as generous as you think it is.
And it lasted what? 30 years, maybe.
30, yeah. I mean, like a lot of the New Deal programs, it's just a work stop program, and really the rationalization of the banks. That's really what it is. What a lot of people seem to think was the Great Society, which never even really happened. Like it was tried for 5 minutes and given up.
Also, like excluded on racial lines.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that black people didn't benefit from the New Deal. They did. But it was exclusionary. Although, again, if you were a white worker in the South, you actually did not do as well as even a redline black worker in the Northeast during that time period. But they didn't expand it to the Southeast. They didn't get rid of their cheap labor sources. And I'll give you an example of this. And I know people don't think this connects to today. But when I was a kid, I come from a lower middle class, blue collar for most of my life. My mom became a nurse when I was an adult. But blue collar family. And the only people we could afford to babysit us were old black women when my parents had to work. And when I say old black women, I mean old black women, like people born in the 20s. So this is the 1980s. So they would have been in their 70s. And they would work for, my parents paid them more than minimum wage, I guess, but they didn't go out much. That was like a once a month thing. But one of these women didn't have a social security number because they weren't giving them to, which also meant that one of the things that my mother did when she was getting her college degree was to try to help this woman try to get her social security benefits and try to get an SSI in her 70s. All right. We forget this thing because now that generation is all dead. But I am young enough or old enough, depending on height, but I'm only 45 years old, to have directly interfaced with that world. It is not that far away from us. And I think, it's like when I knew a bunch of white liberals back when this show disappeared after the Great Awakening, but whatever. When Lovecraft Country came out and they learned about sundown towns. And I was like, you don't know about fucking sundown towns? Mm-hmm. Where the fuck have you been? They were still a thing in the 1980s and 90s. And they weren't just in the South. What are you on?
Well, if you never leave your gated community, you don't know much about the rest of the country.
That's true.
Can we, real quick, we have a question from Political Economy 101. What was the Black Wall Street? Well, can you please explain the difference? Real quick, sundown towns, Black Wall Street, not the same thing.
Are we talking about
probably Tulsa, right?
In Tulsa?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
what's a sundown town? Not a good thing.
I did find it interesting though that that became the narrative of the great crimes of American racial slavery was to go after the black capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Not what was done to sharecroppers, which was a much more massive thing. I did find that narrative interesting. Not to say it wasn't a great historical injustice. It absolutely was, improved the racial nature of American capitalism. But also, there's a lot more tears to cry than for the bourgeoisie, even the black bourgeoisie.
I think the idea with that was that sort of the Booker T. Washington, it was Black people sort of doing for themselves on their own. It's the romancing Jim Crow as well. Like that was a hope for some Black people more recently. Because when I was a kid, people weren't really talking about Black Wall Street. I feel like now it's in vogue to look back and say, hey, we could have really done that. Let's try to do that again.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you hadn't gotten burnt to the ground, what would have happened when your profits started going down because there's no injection of investment into your community? That's the thing. Like it's not like developing nations didn't have their own independent bourgeoisies that weren't subordinated.
Well, they were instrumental in the process of colonialism. Like that's what the comprador class was made up of.
Correct. So it's just it's just that that I guess the lesson is even that won't save you from a bunch of uppity white people. But which is a good lesson to know. But it is interesting. I mean, like, it's funny because today I hear a lot of you talk about this, and yet talk about separatism of any variety is kind of off the table. We don't get lesbian separatists anymore. We don't get black. I guess there are black nationalists, but even they're not true separatists anymore.
Well, they're like weird online cults that spin out in 6 months.
Are we talking about Black Hammer?
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I mean that was very widespread. You do have 4B, sort of the feminist movement in the radical feminist movement in Korea, maybe spreading where you don't have kids, you don't do anything with the menses.
Maybe it's hard to tell how much of that is just I don't know. Actually, I
haven't been. I lived in Korea and I saw trends towards that to a certain degree, but I also don't know that. I mean, okay, so you die out in a generation. You want to be like the left wing version of the Shakers? Great, cool. No social reproduction prospects at all.
Let's go. What is it?
I guess
hand
we'll
in
create
hand,
more
brother and sister into extinction.
Yeah,
I mean, well, let me ask you this. Prairie Fire, Nebraska writes, Varn wants an alien invasion to unite all of humanity, confiscating the wealth of the rich to put behind the war effort. I'll reach out to the aliens.
We already have alien powers that are running the what is capital if not an alien artificial intelligence?
I'm not mad at
we
that.
We haven't united against it. Half of us will be working for the aliens.
I mean,
so maybe the threat of dying out is something that we need. No, can we use that for good?
We have that threat already.
Yes, we do.
That's the climate crisis. What are we doing about it?
I was going to say climate crisis, nuclear weapons.
That's also that's why we don't do nuclear tests anymore. Because no one wants to find out exactly how many of them are duds.
Yeah, actually, that's true. That's true. We don't do nuclear tests because it would expose that maybe our nuclear arsenal doesn't still work because it's old as fuck.
Well, everyone is. And as soon as you find out that some of those are duds, the game theory in MAD changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer assured.
I mean, here's the thing. We used to say socialism or barbarism. I hate to tell you, we know the answer to that. We chose barbarism. That's what World War I was.
No one ever talks about that one.
That was yeah. Today the question's going to be how much are people willing to give up? Because I do I'm not a scarcity Marxist, okay? I think the growth or degrowth question that we all argue about is the wrong framework. It's a weirdly capitalist framework in the first place. But because things need to be used massively differently. And that would imply a lot of outlays, particularly to places like Africa and Latin America and Southeast Asia. It would also imply fundamentally different relations to agriculture, but I don't see us going to like 25% of the population going into agriculture. People are shocked when I'm like, it's 3 to 5%, even when you include undocumented migrant labor, right? That's it. Like that's all of agriculture and employment. So my point is though, and it isn't going to happen on the whole world at one time, but you do have to wonder how people think electing mayors is going to overthrow capitalism. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not even saying Madani is like even claiming to do that.
Right.
I'm just saying like
he ran on social democracy,
right?
And even kind of a not particularly.
It's not particularly
it's
not a robust one, to be quite frank.
No,
it's like
it's a couple kind of small social benefits.
And that's in the richest city in the country, or the richest major city. I mean, LA might be as rich. It's not the richest singular like metropolitan area. It's probably Woodside off the bay in California.
Oh yeah.
Valley. But like as far as like a massive area.
Also, like LA is not a real city.
Yeah, that's true. LA is not a place. LA is Wyoming to me. No,
LA is 35 suburbs like clustered together and called a city.
As a person who is now as a co-writer of a book and now has to visit these places again, LA is not a place. I went and visited friend of the show Ben Burgess in LA when I was dropping a friend off in the real parts of California, aka Lancaster in the deep Mojave, and I was like, "Let's go and see Ben." And I went to LA, and I was actually like, "Why do people get mad at me when I talk about decadence when you look at this shit?" Because I'm literally in places where you see like souped up, almost gold-plated fucking cyber trucks and shit. And you also see human feces on the street on Sunset Boulevard. Like, that's an insult.
You're not the Jared Diamond of the left.
We don't have to be mean, guys. Come on.
Jesus. I knew Kuzlak and I fought, but God. No, I mean, my point about this is just like it's gotten worse in these major cities, but also like it's just happening everywhere, and everyone's answer is gonna okay. So let's say everyone moves to a place that's relatively affordable, like I want to do. I want to go to Michigan. Well, if we all do that, we're back in the same problem.
Like what are we all going to move to Truth and Consequences, New Mexico? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. The other thing is like, okay, we complain about gentrification. But we all know what happens to non-gentrified neighborhoods under capitalism. They just go to fucking waste and don't even get their fucking basic plumbing met. And I know that people who complain about that say, oh, well, we need to mitigate that. And I'm like, but you're not going to do it under capital because you know what is not going to happen. You know what, even if it's yes in my backyard, it's not going to be yes in my $1 million neighborhood in my super mansion. Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to move their assets to Hawaii and the fucking moon, or as Peter Thiel calls it, New Zealand. And yeah, I mean, and we shouldn't be asking people to live in this. And I do think I'm not as given to some people on this channel to complain about the PMC because I think what we've seen is the petite bourgeois being proletarianized completely. I actually that's a thesis of my book is the weird habits of the PMC is because they are being proletarianized as labor aristocratic workers, but their habits are from a time period where they were professionals who sold their things on a market. And so there are a few exceptions to that, nurses and teachers, and those are also the most radical parts of the labor movement. But we can't rely on nurses and teachers to be all the fucking labor movement. And we can't rely on white collar workers because they really are alienated from blue collar workers, and they're also highly dependent on the state. So you have this contradiction here now where we all want we all talk about like going to the trades, let's valorize blue collar work. We put on our Mike Rowe hat, right? But the thing is, like, the trades are getting eaten up by private equity now. It's the last thing to fall because that's where people are going. So that's where you're going to get the last little bits to squeeze out. And you do sometimes get the feeling that our current oligarchs don't think there's a fucking future. I mean, like, I don't want to sound all David Sirota, wag my finger at people, because that's just obnoxious. But it does feel that way. And the other thing we're focusing, like, I just got on X right now. All right. And you know what the biggest debates on X are in DSA XR or DSA Twitter are? They're all about who we're endorsing. Are we endorsing Tom Steiner, as a class traitor? Of course he's not a fucking class traitor, and he's a Zionist. You guys don't mean it. But like, but yeah, sure. I mean, like, it might be your least bad option in New York in the Democratic Party, but what does that tell you? That a private equity billionaire is the best option that you might have for the gubernatorial race of California. Which also lets me wonder, what do people think they're going to do with the Democratic Party? Because the other thing about this strategy, and like, talk about path dependencies and shit. The DSA has very few national policy wins. When it does have them, they tend to be dependent on moderate Democrats allowing them. Even in New York, see the childcare policy in Hochul, and Mondami's having to make a deal with Hochul to get that budget line. Mm-hmm. The issue that you start to see is that you're going to have a patronage problem like with Fetterman. Sure, some of it's the stroke, but a lot of it's patronage. And you're going to have normie Democrats defending people like Fetterman because at least it didn't go to Dr. Oz, right? And I still hear that. And they're like, Fetterman votes 93% with the Democratic Party, which is true, which also says a lot about the Democratic Party. But also, when you look at the actual nature of those votes, like 70% of them are just procedural votes anyway. It's not like the Democrats have had votes that mattered this, other than the war and giving in on the budget. In the past 2 or 3 years, most of the victories they've had against Trump is because Trump is so cravenly corrupt that he undercuts himself, even in his fascistic moves. So it's hard to say what that's going to mean. And let's say we inject a bunch of new blood into the Democratic Party. The issue that if you look at like that as a pathway, as your primary pathway to power, the average incumbency reelection rate for DSA endorsees, not even cadre candidates, just endorsees, so Norman, is about 65%. 65 to 70%, depending on how you count it. I did the math twice, and I did the math myself. The average incumbency reelection rate in the United States is 95%. 90 to 95%. So let's even go on the lower one. What that says to me is that you can get people elected, but you can't protect them if they do anything. And if you can't protect them if they do anything, they're going to go to other places for patronage because your canvassing for them isn't going to cut the mustard at the end of the day. That's a path dependency problem that you think that's going to work. Now, you do need to do electoral work. I'm not saying that you should not vote for Mondani or that Mondani is bad. I'm not saying any of that. All right. But what I'm telling you, if that's your primary pathway to power, you don't have a pathway. All right. Because the structural constraints, even of the people involved, are really limited. And so there's a lot of wisdom and hope in giving up shit that just doesn't work, but cannot work. It's not just that it doesn't work now. I hear the thing. I hear the whole thing. Well, we should keep. I literally heard someone try this. Like, if you keep on throwing a rock at a wall, eventually the wall will collapse. And I'm like, if the rock hits at the exact same spot, the exact same way, and no other condition changes, maybe.
Also depends on the wall.
And it's going to depend over the time frame too, because it's going to take you like a million fucking years.
Probably the rock.
And I always talk about this electoral stuff is to just teach people how to win, but we always get stuck in like defending the electoral gains almost immediately, even if there's not even policy gains downstream. And that's what I'm worried about right now. And I've been pointing all this out because, guys, supposedly since 2010, the left in America is the strongest it's ever been since the 60s. Whenever. You pick your poison on when it's supposed to be. But on policy, we're further away from even social democratic goals than we were in the fucking 90s. Like, insurance companies are far more out of control, even after the ACA. And the control of the entire medical supply chain and stock ownership, like, is all the same people. Attempts to bring back competition into return to just enforcing like a reasonable interpretation of anti-monopoly law doesn't work, because you immediately get defections of all these tech oligarchs who have the capture to do it. They can shut. I mean, like, and if you think it's bad now, all your services are depending on Starlink and fucking OpenAI and all this shit. They can just shut it off and you're done. And so do you think that administering UBI to you is going to stop any of that? No, you need to think of a different pathway. And look, I know the joke is Passadism and we should all go talk to the aliens. And also, there's parts of Passadism that people forget about the aliens. There's also global nuclear war and hoping that the aliens just save the working class from it. That part is not recounted in most of the jokes about Passadism.
So what is it? A.M. Glitz, I think, wrote a good book on Passadism.
Yeah. Andy of This Wreckage fame wrote a good book about it. But like, the entire history of Passadism is weird. But I don't think we're going to see like a global revolution overnight at the same time. I'm not an idiot. That's not how things happen. Capitalism didn't happen that way either. It took capitalism 300 fucking years to arguably capture the globe. But the issue that we have.
So what's the like? Do we have what's the like cameralism of the new socialism? Like what?
I don't know. I mean.
Well, according to Daniel Besner, we're in the age of post-ideology. And basically with the rise of multipolarity, we're moving to a point where the multipolar points are not fighting over ideology. It's not like the Cold War where we had the capitalist West and the communist Soviet Union. We just have basically he's arguing that international capital has won, and we just have spheres of influence fighting over who controls markets.
This is just end of history again.
He's kind of making an end of history argument that end of history was kind of right.
The thing is that requires profit rates to be steady, and they're not gonna be. I mean, I do think what you're
some kind of tendency about that I heard about.
Yeah. Besner almost as cheerful as Varn. Besner is way more cheerful in person than me, by the way. He just accepted doom and is smiling about it.
He's really happy about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, like he's actually a joy to hang out with weirdly. So like, just so you know, like I've hung out with Besner. He's a remarkably happy person.
We all hung out with him at his house like a year ago.
Yeah, I wasn't there, but yeah.
Oh, well, you were there later.
Yeah. No, I think what a lot of us are seeing is, I mean, are we in a post-ideological world? It feels weird to say that when you're seeing so many fractures of the system globally. Like dollar hegemony is actually at stake. And weirdly, you know what's undoing it is what is the U.S. itself. Like,
that is the thesis that, I mean, dollar hegemony is at stake because of a failure of America's version of capital. That doesn't mean state capitalism under China isn't ascendant.
Well, it might be. I mean, the question is though, how long is the business cycle in China going to stay contained? They have one now. They didn't from the 1980s even into the parts of Dingism. They did not have a business cycle. Now they do. They have youth unemployment. That's also an interesting problem. I'm actually like a pretty strong China defensist. But I just want to point out that like capitalism doesn't get piecemealed. It doesn't. It's not just about commodities. Also, rents are traded as commodities and capital, which is another, and it have been since the 17th fucking century. It's not new. But what we are seeing a return to is the state creating monopoly oligarchs, the likes of which we have not seen since the laying down of the railroads. But unlike the laying down of the railroads, these monopoly oligarchs aren't really making public infrastructure at all, even privatized public infrastructure. And so it's, how long can that last? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the other thing we have to wonder is like, people talk about what's replacing the dollar, and it seems to be gold. I mean, I'm being very serious here. If you look at gold hoarding, it's a real thing right now for all the BRICS countries. And that's because not only does no one have faith in any other global currency, the fact is the currencies that people would have faith in don't want to do what the U.S. did. Because let's just ask from China's domestic policy standpoint. If China made the yuan the global hegemonic currency the way the US dollar is the global hegemonic currency, it would make producing things in China super fucking expensive. Why in the world would they do that?
And they've shown no. It seems like they don't have any appetite for like not using the dollar. Like China's still doing a ton of global trade, and they're not.
No one believes that China wants to be the sole hegemon of the world.
No. I mean, they want to convince you. They want to convince you, like the general public, that they want to do that, but they don't act like they believe it. No.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. Go ahead.
They're not trying to do like a ground invasion of Taiwan. They want like enough economic pressure that Taiwan's like, it's going to be easier to just work with China.
That's I mean, because the military could do it yesterday. I mean, they could have done it like 20 years ago. So. There's, I mean, we are in a changing multipolar order, but I guess maybe Besner is right on one thing, is that there isn't a new economic ideology so far really emerging to replace it in any significant way. I do believe that there's a lot of the CPC, I'm not even saying the PRC, who still believes in socialism, but they think it's on a time scale that's pretty far off. Not super far off, I think 1 or 2 generations, but pretty far off. And they are not as concerned as historically communist is of moving it anywhere outside of China. So I don't know what that means for us or for the world. And I also think what you've seen communists do, and I'm not just talking about milquetoast social democrats here, I mean actual communists, is to also basically shrink in their demands about what they expect socialism to look like and be. Basically what they mean is, I mean, somebody was complaining, I saw some ML complaining the other day that Leftcom should like Bukharin because should like China because it's just like Bukharin. I'm like, Bukharin wasn't Leftcom, he was a right deviationist. But also the other issue is like Bukharin's NEP and Lenin's NEP, only 10% of the economy was private. There's just still markets. China only holds something like 23% of all shares in the state market. It's a lot. It's way more than any Western market, and it can mitigate a whole lot of problems. I'm not belittling it, but it's way lower than the NEP. And it does open it up to all kinds of resource constraints. because it's still got to deal with commodity production and a mass scale, not just for itself. I don't know. I mean, I guess I do have some hope for China in ways that I don't necessarily for the United States. But again, you're not in China, so I don't know how much good that does for most people here.
Well, wait, let me ask you about this. There is a TikTok trend called becoming Chinese or China maxing. Gen Z users in Western countries adopt Chinese lifestyle habits such as drinking hot water, wearing indoor slippers, and practicing traditional Chinese medicine wellness routines. What is going on here? Are we
I don't think this is a real
accepting our
thing.
Chinese overlords? our new Chinese overlords.
Oh, well, I mean,
is this acceptance?
Look, if Chairman G wanted to, I mean, I don't want a 12-hour workday or anything, but like, if Chairman G wanted to take over, who knows? There might be a contingent here who would not who would be okay with that. The issue that you have though is there's no evidence that they do. So you want people to LARP in their homes to adopt Chinese practices to somehow magically bring about what exactly? I don't even know. Like it's like a couple years ago, there was this weird habit amongst intellectuals to like all talk about how we all needed to become Neo-Confucians. I was very confused by this. But you know, and it didn't last very long. It kind of died out very quickly. But like it seems like almost like a folk magic way of being, like if we all act like we're somehow culturally Chinese, the Chinese political economy will just magically appear. The other thing that somebody was telling me was like, well, Chinese culture is like a bajillion years old and that's why they're winning. And I'm like, well, most of us come from ancient cultures too. So what? And also like
because their ancient culture had Sun Tzu.
I do actually want to push back as the resident young person. Like the whole like becoming Chinese, it's a joke.
Okay.
Like I'm not going to wear outside shoes in my house. I'm going to wear slippers. Like most, as long as if you're in a fucking city, like that's what you do if you're not gross. Like you don't want to track the fucking New York City sidewalks through your apartment.
Agreed.
And like it's like, you know, I made myself tea. I'm just going to call it China maxing because I'm like not happy with the state of the world. I'm going to like virtue signal that I think China's cool. And that's what the whole like becoming Chinese is. Like, there's some kind of cultural capital around like the new forms of Orientalism that we've controlled or like constructed around China, because it seems like maybe China is the only one who still believes in a future, or like has some kind of planning.
So this
towards...
is like weed for Chairman G.
Kinda, but it's all ironic. Like it's all mediated through like a level of insincerity, and like maybe I'm gonna learn how to speak Cantonese just for a bit, like to be able to lean into this thing that I think is kind of funny harder.
Maybe I'm gonna ask Pascal a question. Pascal, why are small generations always irony poisoned? Like, because like this was also true for Gen X when it was this age too. You remember? I kind of remember. I'm a Gen Xer, but only barely. Like, because it does seem like irony poison seems to like. I mean, because like millennials were obnoxiously sincerity poisoned, and so were boomers. So I have no Marxist theory for this. I just what's anyone take?
I mean, I will say this. You could easily lose the irony and the joke in it, but when Quinn said China maxing, it just sounded hilarious to me. It sounds like an absolute joke. That's
because it is. Yeah. It's all jokes. That's the only thing we have left. We don't believe in a future. Like none of us really like in our hearts believe we're gonna like have a real life past 50, maybe. So why not at least have some fun with it?
I do like Chinese tea a lot.
Yeah, Chinese tea is great.
I was pretty pissed at the tariffs for increasing my Chinese tea.
Yeah.
Moroccan mint tea is better.
What tea?
Moroccan mint tea.
Oh yeah,
that's also very good too.
No, mint is for toothpaste. I'm sorry.
What?
What?
What are you talking about?
No, it's not a flavor.
Okay,
Except
you just offended everyone with any historical or ancestral linkage to anywhere that grows mint in any significant amount, including
given how
North
mint grows,
Africa.
it's fucking everywhere. It grows like a goddamn weed.
Yeah, I used to grow mint in Queens too, but yeah, you cannot get rid of it. It just spreads everywhere. But
yeah, it's like bamboo. Like once it gets in,
it's
it's impossible to get out.
Yeah, it's that's what she said. Yeah. It does not register to me as Toussaint is getting quiet fired. Okay.
Toussaint is getting loud flamed for her bad opinion.
Matcha nasty, man.
You're not a matcha guy, Pascal?
Grass, man.
Matcha's not bad. You make it with a little bit of honey.
You can, jazz it up.
If you gotta jazz it up, don't drink it.
Okay, you gotta jazz up rice. Are you anti-rice?
Rice can have flavor.
Rice on its own is flavorful to you?
The right way. Listen, I'm Haitian. I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, but like rice and water.
First of all, you can cook spices and boil it in the rice to give it flavor.
So you're spicing it up. You're adding things. Like spices to rice is what like honey and other flavorings are to matcha, right?
Yeah, but rice doesn't taste like grass.
Right. It tastes like almost nothing.
It tastes like grass seed. Because that's what it is. But
wars.
No, I love rice.
I do too. I'm just saying, like, you got to add stuff.
Rice is amazing.
I've been on a beans and rice kick because it's cheap. So I'm learning traditional island ways and culturally appropriating them because poor. I'm not really that poor, but everyone's kind of poor now. So I'm down with the rice and beans and just throwing a bunch of spices in there. I'm learning how to ground my own chili powder so it doesn't have arsenic in it as much.
We all need to be doing
That's what that taste was. I was like, it's got a little aftertaste to it.
Did you guys see this stuff on candy's arsenic levels not being like what they're supposed to be at all? When they tested it,
I don't eat candy. It's not my problem. I get my arsenic through the cigarettes.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And you do.
I get tons of it.
And your vape coils too. No, I mean, I was worried about the arsenic cloud, but then I was like reading about the modern food stuff, and we made arsenic compliance optional during the Biden administration. It was like a slow rollout. And so, like in Florida, they tested like 28 companies, and like all the fruit flavored, not chocolatey stuff had fairly significant levels of arsenic in it. Like, so.
Really? I mean, isn't arsenic naturally occurring as well, like in apples, or is that cyanide?
Oh, yeah, apple seeds, but it's not much.
Yeah. Arsenic and cyanide. Yeah, although I did try to do something stupid from watching The Princess Bride as a child and give myself cyanide.
I've developed immunity.
Cyanide and immunity by eating apple seeds, and actually what I gave myself was fucking kidney stones. But that's what it'll do. No, I mean, like our food standards have dropped to shit. And I don't just mean like in the Maha way. I mean also like we're not monitoring things anymore.
Right.
Like the amount of recalls is that no one hears about and does anything about is off the chain right now. Like
Wasn't someone in front of talking to Congress or something, and they held up the Cheerios from Canada and the ones from the United States, the brightly colored Fruit Loops that we have here with all the dyes?
Yeah, although some of that's, I mean, I want to say some of the stuff with dyes is kind of weird because we also have dyes in those countries that we don't use because we think that they're dangerous.
Right.
The US has more dye bans than the EU.
Yeah, we do. But if we're not, it doesn't matter if we have dye bans if no one's actually checking what's going in.
True.
So yeah, it's just eat organic.
Yeah, that's gonna save us.
Arsenic's organic.
Arsenic's
just you can get it from drinking all natural water in Mexico, man. And by the way, which is what's going to happen to the southwestern United States, because what happened in Mexico is not because the water's dirty or they're unclean. It's because you had a water table in a desert which has high heavy metal content, and you used it for cattle, which means the human potable drinking water had higher and higher concentrations of heavy metals, and that includes arsenic and mercury. And in Mexico, everyone bought water, not because the water was unclean because of, like, I don't know, whatever you think, whatever stupid racist thing you probably think is unclean by, but because the water table was that low, which is happening in Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, parts of California, parts of Texas today. So get off your fucking high horse. It's happening here too.
Nobody knows what's happening here, though. Especially not with the water and the water tables and reservoirs.
Oh God! Well, I know because we're about to have an arsenic cloud when the Salt Lake dries up, because all the heavy metals are then going to go into the air. And so all these $600,000 houses are going to get kind of interesting if they retain their value when you need fallout level respirators to walk around. And if you think the data center they're going to open is going to make that any better at all, good damn luck on that. I mean, they say they're going to
Pascal, you muted.
Yeah. Anyway, Florida has good water. Yeah, they're by the ocean. They're about to be underwater too. Go ahead. Pascal,
let's try to close out.
Pascal, you're still muted.
No, I was actually talking to someone in my domicile.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, there you go. Okay. Pascal, can you give us any good news to wrap up with? How should we be looking at this? How do we survive this?
Besides, the current moment is ripe for revolution, comrades.
Okay. So we should not burn down our warehouse by ourselves. We should do it with comrades, as a collective.
I was being somewhat facetious, but
MT, this line is monitored by Google, which means it's also monitored by the State Department. So
this is part of the great thing about being online. I cannot tell you what I think you should do, because it would get both of us in trouble.
I am irony maxing.
We need to organize. I think we need to really organize cadre to be able to teach people who are really in the working class that the system is filled with such contradiction that it may be difficult to sustain itself. Do I think the trite saying that, American capitalism is in crisis and it's the end of empire? I mean, yeah, Marxists have been saying that for 100 years. But the bottom line is that there are contradictions. One thing we do know, there are contradictions in contemporary American capitalism that are endemic, that are ripe for us to be able to organize around if we believed in the stuff we were shoveling.
There was a character in a movie. His name was Fred Hampton, and the movie was called Jesus and the Black Messiah. And he used to say this, what Sean Moon says here, heighten the contradictions. So that's what we're working on now? That's
It's a
what
common leftist saying, particularly of the ML variety.
That's our positive project for right now. Not voting all the time.
Well, I'm not saying that we not vote. What I'm saying is that we shouldn't be depending on electoralism as our solution.
Fair.
Which is a posture I think that some accuse DSA of having.
So we're organizing, we're heightening the contradictions, and we're not relying on electoralism as our sole strategy.
We're talking on a podcast.
We're talking on a podcast. I mean, like,
yeah.
What would I tell you to do? I would say organize multiple forms of organization so that eventually, when things continue the way they are and objective and subjective conditions align, to use a bit of Marxist-Leninist speak from the old, which means that the ruling class, not just the underclasses, are also in a self-perpetuating crisis, which they are right now. I mean, like, they don't know what's going on in the future. They really don't. That's why I do think that's why you see this liquidate it all mentality out of that class, because they also don't think they have a future, and a lot of them are 80 and they really don't. It's the other thing when you're controlled by 80, like when Pascal is the youngest and spryest person in Congress. If he was in Congress, he's not, but he would be close. You have a problem, because
damn, thanks, Varn.
Just picking you because you're the oldest. I'm the second oldest, so like if I got elected to Congress, I would be called young. I'm middle aged. I actually consider that, as far as like politically, my work is pretty much now just educating younger people to do something with what I know, not. And to organize. That's all I'm doing. And I'm not even trying to be in leadership, because that should go to younger people who are going to be around to see it through. The other thing I agree with Pascal on is, like, we have to not just heighten the consultations, but we have to be in the places the contradictions are. That's shit kicking blue collar neighborhoods that are white. That's black churches. That's not ceding that ground to grifters and reactionaries all the fucking time, because
Notice how Varn understands the importance of organizing in black churches. Unlike some of our melanin deprived comrades on the left.
Like, you go where the people are, and you have to, like, I think about this. I think about the mass line, which I've been really studying. Most people in America, when they say the mass line, they mean popular with everybody, which is stupid. That's not what it meant. What it meant historically is you went out and did, like, workers' inquiry, peasants' inquiry, and all that. See where people are. You built and adjusted your program through the party and elected official towards that. Then you gave it back to the people to help you implement, but getting buy-in, and you did it different. I mean, this is interesting. You did it differently on social issues in different places. You knew with certain communities that you wanted to implement positive social change that were not just economic, but you did not try to push it everywhere at the same speed. And I know that makes people uncomfortable. Because it's like a divided and uneven thing. But you live in a divided and uneven world, and you have to meet people where they're at. And I'm not saying be a bigot about it. I'm not saying go tell the right. That doesn't work. People don't believe you when you do it anyway. Mm-hmm. Most people who try to do that shit just look ridiculous. Because neither side trusts them then. But I do think we do have to meet people where they're at to some degree. And I think, the focus primarily or solely on culture as a means of organizing, which has been dominant in liberal and frankly left-wing circles since the 1970s, has been terrible at that. Like, and actually in some cases, I think damaging to the groups that people want to help. I mean, if for example, if we really look at DI initiatives between 2020 and 2022, how many black people were lifted out of poverty by them? like 3.
Varn talking that spicy talk. Varn talking that spicy talk.
You know, how many poor people of any variety were helped by talking about checking your privilege for 2 fucking decades? Nobody. Not a person. Even affirmative action, which I do think benefited a lot of people of color. But let's be honest, it was really incorporating people into the increasingly proletarianized professional and petit bourgeois class that was doing. And if you really look at the stats, it didn't really help. Like all those college quotas that they gave themselves, it inflamed things like ADOS, which is inherently reactionary, but does come out of a response to this. And I think that we have to ask ourselves now, like, what are we going to do to reach out to people that isn't only about reaching out to the people that are elites, because that's who people talk about. That's why we talk about all the stupid shit going on at elite. Like if you read like college discourse, I'm not even talking about like black college. If you like college discourse from like 2010 to 2022, you would have thought that everybody was doing what the top 1% was doing with their kids, because the only things that anyone was fucking writing about was what was going on at Harvard, which is a sliver of not just the population, but of the college going population. 52% of college attendees go to community college. Like, what the fuck are we talking about all these elite schools for? And leftists need to organize and not be sucked into that shit all the time. There are things that really matter. The Voting Rights Act mattered, but the Voting Rights Act was also a thing that failed because it only applied to fucking southern states really anyway.
It also just got fucking gutted by the Supreme Court.
And it's been, we knew it was coming.
Sure,
it's been gutted by 1,000 cuts for 1,000,000 years. Right? That stuff does matter. We're going to see it really matter in places like Alabama, Tennessee, the Carolinas.
Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee in particular. And you also now have lawmakers in those states who are brave enough to say they want to undo the Civil War amendments.
Yep.
Which, by the way, doesn't just get rid of it doesn't just get rid of all the cool things for people of color. It also means that like the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to you from your state at any level. Because the Bill of Rights was not applied to state governments until after the Civil War, because they were only in effect for the federal government. The states governments could do as they like. Most people don't understand U.S. government enough. You need an American. Well, you'd have to win a revolution first, otherwise you're just going to have the ICE as American Cheka.
So like, I don't know. Like I'm listening to some of the kind of trying to reach people where they are, and I'm wondering, how do we not act like neurotics go into the people, given what is the makeup of the left in the U.S. right now?
I mean, like, okay. I wrote a whole book about this. This is maybe my positive stream, and I've talked too goddamn much this episode, so I apologize. But
not at all, Warren.
So I would tell you that what you really would need to start looking at is, for most people, dual power ends up meaning mutual aid, and it ends up meaning voting for Democrats or something. I don't know. I recently revised an article I wrote over a decade ago on dual power and pointed out the problems with it, where it worked, where it didn't, why it is what it is. But one of the things that was aimed to do was to prove to the workers that they did, and the socialists themselves, that they had a common project, and that they could run things without the state when it was in crisis and in the process of becoming the state. If the idea is we need to build power, we have to look at building power at multiple capacities that also mean being less dependent on things like social welfare administered by the state. And unfortunately for most people, and I'm not saying this because I'm against the state, I'm just saying this, you don't control that state. You don't control, like Mandami doesn't control that state. I'm gonna be honest, even under Trump, like if the tech oligarchs and everything really truly and completely abandon him, he's in trouble. Like, so this idea that we're going to do this by asking the government to play nicely to electoralism is absurd. What you have to start thinking about is what could you do to make yourself less dependent on these things you don't control? How do you organize for that? And that heightens the contradictions in and of itself. You have to subordinate your intellectua to a common vision that is not dominated by the intellectua themselves. And that is the problem with the Narodniki. The Narodniki want to be part of the people, but it's like the same thing as like PMC on PMC violence. You know, you have all these people who in universities complaining about how the universities have forgone the working class, but they still work in universities, which, you know, I don't expect them to go not. I don't expect them to be something they're not. And they're really just mad at like the classism of their colleagues and making this about a culture war front. That doesn't fix shit. Like, you can complain about the PMC all the time, but that doesn't subordinate anyone, and the people doing it are PMC themselves. And I don't even think the PMC is a class. I think it is a strata. But nonetheless, what you have to do then is start creating institutions for workers to move into, and that requires a merger of socialism with the workers' movement. It's got to be a merger, meaning one is not subordinate to the other, but they work in concert with each other. And that's the way these revolutions have had, and they've happened, unfortunately, in places where capitalism is weakest, which is during wars or on the periphery, and also historically they've involved peasants. The issue that we have today is agricultural labor almost worldwide has been de-peasantified. No one's doing subsistence agriculture like that in any scale. They do exist, but they're really small. So you're not going to have a peasant base to combine with for the workers. The workers are going to have to do it, even if you don't think it's ideal, themselves. And it's going to probably happen in places where capitalism is more fractured first. So you will probably see it in places where imperialism is more blatant and stuff, you know, like in Middle East and North Africa. And we have to create a space to line up with that, because that's also going to be your basis of international solidarity. Are you going to get stuck in like capital flight problems, which you might not have in the United States, but you're going to have elsewhere. And I do think it's overcomable, but we have, you know, like, I guess this is my happy part of the episode, but we have to give up on bullshit. We don't. The reason why Bolsheviks did electoralism wasn't because they thought they could vote themselves into power. It's because it was proving the people that they could stop other things from happening. And that goes back to the Second International Strategy. Even that was the original goal, which they abandoned, and after the revisionism controversies in the 1910s. And then in particular in 1913, 1914 for obvious reasons. But like, that was the original goal. The electoralism wasn't because they were dumb enough to believe that they could manage a capitalist state.
And like, as soon as they had the chance, they changed the situation pretty definitively.
Right. So, I mean, you know, but that also means means that we all pretend to like, we can like not vote and sit out on everything and just let everything get worse and people come to our side, because historically that's not true either. Crises don't often lead to the Bolshevik Revolution. They often lead to right-wing consolidation. The Bolshevik Revolution is the reason why we study it so much, and it's so important. The reason why we study the Chinese Revolution and it's so important. The reason why we even study the liberal revolutions and the national liberation revolutions like Haiti, and they're so important, is because there are so many other examples of those same crises going another way. And that also means we need to study those failed revolutions. People need to know a lot more about what happened in the Mexican Revolution. They need to know a lot more about the Haitian Revolution, what its international constraints were, what its internal constraints were, what the figures involved really were, who was actually radical and who wasn't. We need to learn about all these revolutions. We need to learn about the American Revolution in more detail and its contradictions in more detail, because I get tired of this kind of like facile debate about whether or not it was reactionary. Of course it was partially reactionary. Of course it was. A bunch of white people trying to steal a bunch of other people's land. And also thrive off of their labor. There's also other elements of that. So, this idea that like the British were going to somehow be progressive or something, and that traditional pre-capitalist societies were somehow better, which is a message that people shouldn't take from the work of Jared Horn, but people often do, particularly liberals who read it, is nutty to me, because it seems to just idealize these other class structures just because they're foreign to you. Or to pretend that, for example, owning the Americans isn't part of why the British started getting rid of slavery in the colonies in the first place. So we need to have a much more complex view of these things, and we need to start learning from them, and we also need to start learning why they're rare, because crises are not rare. They're not. I would actually look at human history. There's more periods of crisis than not, probably. At least by the time you get to agriculture. Maybe when we're in the all happy hunter-gatherers and we're just like, I don't know. Probably not then either, because you eventually have diseases and starve and shit. But like
the crisis is the new lion in town.
Yeah. I mean, you had less of this, but you have a disease outbreak, although again more common under agriculture.
We have a super chat from Prairie Fire, Nebraska. Thank you. I learned everything I know about the American Revolution by playing Assassin's Creed 3. The war was won by a reluctant mixed-race indigenous person from upstate New York.
Okay.
You can find education everywhere.
Actually, all the best history is contained in the Assassin's Creed games.
I believe it. I want to ask you, Quinn, since you are the future that Whitney Houston sang about, what do we do? What is our best positive direction forward?
You're asking the wrong person.
No, you are representing your generation, sir. Don't be giving back something.
If I'm going to represent my generation, what's the dominant kind of strain is like, yeah, we're all probably going to die soon. Might as well have some fun on the way out.
But what if you don't, though? What if you just live miserably for 50, 60 more years?
Well, that's what's probably going to happen.
Okay, then.
Right, the death drive is idealistic. Yeah, no, the burning out bright. That's why everyone, like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Is that
why Luke's maxing is so fucking self-destruct? I mean, I'm actually somewhat seriously, because it's like
kind of, yes, yeah. The future has already been foreclosed upon. If you're trying to maximize, if you know that in 10 years it will be worse for you no matter what you do than it is now, what do? You try to maximize what's going right now. You're trying to maximize, like, you're operating on like an individual interpersonal level at the same fucking logic structure that is, causing the stock buybacks, right? The future doesn't fucking exist anymore. What exists is the next maybe 2 quarters, and you're going to try to maximize what you can in that next little chunk of time.
Man, but even as a generation of partiers, you guys are kind of like, you don't have a lot of sex, you don't do a lot of drugs, you don't. I mean, I'm glad you're not drinking. I mean, you all do weed.
It's like, talk for yourself, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
For yourself. I'm having fun. No, but you're not wrong. Like, generation-wise, it's mostly like staying home. Or like kind of thinking you're maybe doing this and enjoying it vicariously through like
robot
celebrities.
Like, is that why I had to care about Clavicular like basically almost killing himself in public? Like,
yeah, I mean, the more I learn about that kid, I just feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it is kind of a sad situation. And the thing that I think scares me most about Clavicular is that he seems representative of larger problems. But like, I don't know. Yeah. Or this is all kind of hauntology. That's.
It's all hantavirus? What?
It's the hantavirus. Well,
no.
if I'm to answer that question, I sort of answered it earlier, but I like this answer. Dusty says, I want Megan communism, and Megan is Megan the Stallion. How about that?
She's actually not communism because she owns a fast food restaurant in South Florida, and she's not good to her labor.
Ooh.
Damn. Shots fired.
She owns a Popeye franchise on South Beach.
I feel like none of these people are. Tom Hooker, coming in from Facebook, says, not everyone has to talk to strangers or be at the forefront. There's plenty of work behind the scenes.
You should talk to strangers, though.
Yes, you should talk to strangers.
You should be social. You should like go out and like talk to people in real life. You should talk to your neighbors. Even if it's not going to like build the fucking revolution, it's good for you as a person to like be social.
But also be normal, man. Like, not necessarily a normie, but if you're going to be eventually reveal that you're a leftist to this stranger, it would.
You don't have to hide it. Just like don't be
good
like weird and off-putting.
Yes, it would be good if you're not weird. It's a good representation for us if you're not a weirdo and super online in a bad way. But I would add to that, I think it's important to be organizable and to be open to it, because everyone is not going to be an organizer. We hear people say we need to organize all the time. And I think sometimes people think that means you need to magically turn into an organizer. And then it's like, well, how do I do that? And then it seems like, well, that's not even going to happen. When am I going to find the time? No. And then you're just not going to do anything. If someone else is organizing, you can help. There's all kinds of ways to help. You don't have to just be a body at a protest, which is what some of these organizations seem to want people to do. That you can use your talents in all kinds of ways to help the cause, I think.
The primitive accumulation of socialist spectacle labor is one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Say that in English.
In English for normies, the children's crusade for protesting that don't work just makes liberals feel good.
Okay.
Which is why honestly today, like you go to No, I will say I have seen this too. People tell me there are young people at No Kings protest, but now that I've been to like 4 of them,
I don't see them.
I don't see people my age. Like I'm 45. I see people in their fucking 60s. You know, but I do think like, yeah, we have to learn to talk to normies. I was being sarcastic. And I also agree it's okay to be weird. I'm a weirdo, but just don't be a creep or asocial. And also try not to look like a total fucking bloodthirsty psychopath. I know that because some of you aren't good at it. It's weird because a lot of you've also not ever engaged and you've never even been hit before. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but like,
like I don't know. You know, I think I don't have a lot of experience with like real violence. I've had a gun in my face before. It's not fun. I don't want to be there ever again.
It's not fun.
Like, I don't. So all of this fucking LARPing about like, oh, we're gonna do the revolution with guns right now. Like, it's a last resort, and it's one that you don't want to happen.
It's also not Narodnicki shit. It's a good way to get a lot of innocent people killed. I mean, like I know that everyone likes Luigi, and I'm not here to shit on that. I'm also not here to celebrate it. It's to me just something that happens when you let systems get out of control like this. But the thing is, United Healthcare still exists. In fact, it's getting worse. You got concessions for a week. You did get some concessions for a week, I guess, but that's it. It looks like things are going to be more privatized and more private. I'm even hesitant to say neoliberalized because they're not even really that. It's just straight up like patronage stuff at this point.
I will say, actually, really quick, on the Luigi stuff, there is some really weird links between Luigi and Teal, who has made a lot of gains in the wake of this. Like, it, not to get too like parapolitics about it, but like, if we spend a lot of time valorizing these like Adventurists, it's not gonna do us a lot of good. And there's a decent chance that it actively works to benefit our political enemies.
I'm getting more and more pushback for complaining about the Weathermen, and when people are like, oh, the Weathermen work. So they gave themselves STIs and blew themselves up as somehow social rebellion, and alienated the CPUSA, and then all became good fucking liberal professors for the most part, either in math or education. How is that a model for us? Why do you want that back? Like, it might make you feel good, but they didn't achieve shit either. Like, I mean, a lot, for all the ones and also all the ones who didn't get either arrested or become professors, they ended up drug out in the 80s and caught up in the drug war, which was what Vinland, which is the book,
Vineland, I thought.
Yeah, Vineland, excuse me.
Which is also a great read.
Great read. Book that one battle after another supposedly about and gets everything wrong with. Can't even figure out which left it's talking about.
Yep.
The anarchists also killed the Tsar and didn't get what they wanted.
To play devil's advocate on that movie, it's a movie that's much more about like being an insecure white person that doesn't know how they relate to revolution than it is about any like larger left. That's why it's so confused.
Yeah, I mean, which would be the stance of the director.
Yeah, exactly.
So I find, but it's actually interesting what happened to these people. You get a lot of valorization of that because people want to do something, and of course you want to do something, right? But that's not organizing, and it doesn't tend to work. I mean, weirdly, it's also not leading to as much repression as I thought it might lead to yet. But when I look at what's in these bills and what's being passed, I mean, like technically, if you read those new anti-terrorist bills, even most liberals are technically terrorists right now. There's no way they can actually enforce that even with AI, but like, Jesus. I just think we have to think about this in terms of like more than just revenge. Because, revenge gets rid of one person, 3 people will fill in that spot.
That's a great point. Let me just put this up. Dylan says, organizing into what is also the question, greater project, i.e. international mass movement. So earlier, Varn was talking about organizing. And then in the United States, we seem to practice firm or organizing, which I think means like by your company, but you were advocating for sector and then larger. Varn's idea is we need to organize in smaller groups and then organize into bigger groups. It's Voltron. It's the Voltron strategy. You gotta all get together and make a big organization robot to take on.
The internationals came out of the workers' movements, plural. And then those workers' movements became parties, which exactly what Taft-Hartley and the laws passed in the United States were designed to prevent from ever happening. They were also designed to prevent even the Scandinavian model, which, like I said, is not about a bunch of state-passed regulations. It's about sectional bargaining and the unions actually being willing to walk away. But even those have been partially liberalized or neoliberalized. They're not ideal. They're just way the fuck more powerful than what you saw in Britain or France, and that's been way the fuck more powerful than what we have here, which is like nothing. The other thing that you have is you have union bureaucracy that is very much tied into things staying that way. Like when my union endorses a candidate, I'm a rep and I don't even get to vote on it. Like I am told who we endorse. They're not pitching endorsements to us, they're pitching endorsements to our leadership alone. Now that's not true for most unions, but it's true for large enough of the public sector ones that it's a severe problem. And in my capacity as a DSA, I'm extremely unpopular. I vote to not endorse anybody. I will not vote for an endorsement, period, because I think it's premature. And we can't control them, and we can't protect them either. And if we can't protect them, why should they come to us for patronage? Other than to get them over some threshold, which 5% of the vote in New York can do, and that really only seems to work in places like New York. And I want to be clear about why it works in New York. New York literally has 1/5 of the entire organization in it. All right, there's about 105 to 110,000 people in the DSA. 1/5 of it is in New York, and you know what's even funnier? It's not in the Bronx. I'm gonna leave it at that. Make the conclusion you want to draw from that. And I'm not saying DSA isn't working class. It's just a very specific part of the working class. And it's not in the box. Like I hate to tell you where the union candidates are here in Salt Lake, of which we have one endorsed by the DSA and a few others. But where they're not? The actual blue collar neighborhoods. They're not there. They're in the neighborhoods around the university, the neighborhoods around the East Bench, which for us is where the rich people are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I laughed when someone was like, "Oh, John Fetterman got the working class vote by rolling out, his feudal working class stick," and I was like, "No, he got professors like you, who I was talking to Professor." Who like to pretend you're working class by voting for someone who appeals to what you think that is. But for all your complaints about the PMC, it doesn't change what you are. You're in a certain strata of the economy too. And this is not, I'm not slagging on DSA. It's a structural problem, but it's one that we have to look at. Like if all we have to deal with is these downwardly mobile white collar workers, how do you change that? And how do you deal with the fact that the industrial working class is only 8 to 11% of the overall economy and the overall employment? So you have to deal with the other sectors of the working class. You can't just LARP about reindustrialization all the time because it's not going to fucking happen.
On that note, I just want to highlight another comment here. MT spilled the peanut butter today. Sure did. Also, you should listen to This Is Revolution, and you should hit like and share and hype. We don't be seeing our shows hype. They should be hype. It's supposed to help smaller creators. And, to be fair, it is called This Is Revolution, but this is not your political activity. This is some education and some entertainment. But yeah, please support This Is Revolution. Become a patron, become a member. I was recently...
Blog also has a Patreon.
That's right. $3. It's the best $3 you'll ever spend.
$4 now. Sorry, inflation hit, but I'm not going to change it anytime.
Hey. You can catch Quinn on Sundays doing a show whose title is going to be changed, but is now currently called
Philosophy for the People.
Here we go. Pascal is co-host supreme on This Is Revolution. Varn, plug your channel.
Yes, y'all.
Tell us about your book.
I have a book co-written with Daniel Tutt, where we had to agree on everything to print it, so that was fun. Actually, Daniel and I really agreed on a lot of stuff, but we wouldn't print anything we both didn't agree on. It was originally going to be an article where I was complaining about the rise of populism as populism was dying again. So like dumb ideas just don't ever go away. But then I started thinking about the social function of populism in the fragmentation of the working class economy, not like ideologically, but like literally how we are employed, and started thinking about what that would mean. And then what the merger thesis that socialists should merge with the broad sectors of all the various forms of the working class, not just the white collar ones, would look like. And why are the white collar ones so good at some things and so terrible at others? And what limitation does that mean? So we did that too. And we managed to get it down to about 60 pages, believe it or not.
What?
I know.
Your summary is 60 pages. What?
Daniel kept on being like, cut more out. And I'm like, yes, sir. And then he would like, then I give it to him and he'd take even more out. And then I'd be like, but we have to explain the definition, sir. And he'd be like, I know.
Insufficient liquidation.
So yeah, we'll be talking about that. It's probably going to be a series of engagements that I'm writing. But I've now actually finished something. So it's already to the publisher, and it will be out in June by Revo Press. And I will be touring in the greater New York area. And when I say touring, I'm just selling books. I'm not charging for this. All my I think all the events I've agreed to so far are free and open to the public. So is
that shade at us to come through?
Yeah, it is shade, so there's no reason not to come. And
you're coming to New York, right?
Yeah, I'll be in New York. I'll be in DC. I'll be in Philly now, and in Baltimore. And then I might do some stuff on the West Coast because that's actually closer to where I live. I have to someone's like, come to Portland, and I'm like, pay for me, and also keep certain people from showing up that we're not going to mention.
Teal.
Yeah. And
the bone smashing check at the door.
Yeah, and I might also do like some small things in California because I go there a fair amount for other reasons. But I might not be doing any of it because gas gets too much more expensive. I don't know how I'm affording to do anything. So there's that. But yeah, and I'll be doing local engagements here in the greater Salt Lake area too, if anyone asks me, but I have to be asked. All right. That's all the plug. I hate plugging.
No, you did a good job, Bunny. You did a good job. I would also like to plug something. I was recently on a podcast called White Cannon.
Is that when white people have 30 kids?
No, actually, it's about a mixed panel watching movies that are white canons, like movies all white people have seen, like Reality Bites, quote unquote all, right? So the movie that we want
heard of Reality Bites.
You have to be my age.
Yeah, that's probably it.
It's a white classic for Gen Xers and late millennials.
I've never seen it, but they did an episode on The Big Lebowski, which was also really good. So the episode I was on, we were watching Harold and Maude.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that was you've seen it. See this?
Yeah, film in the Bay Area. I was watching that movie. I was like, oh, that's the Redwood City Courthouse.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So yeah, you can check that out. The preview is out now, and in a few days the full episode will be out on your major outlets for listening to podcasts. Of course, listen to me here on This Is Revolution. I'm going to be hosting some more episodes coming up. Give us all the feedback. We want all the comments. We want to know your thoughts on this. What are your experiences in the job market? What are you doing that's good and in a positive direction? How are you positive maxing? And thank you. Let's Pascal. Can you take us out?
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are out.